Ready? Okay. It is 6 o'clock on May 11th, 2022. We'll call the Tokerville Planning Commission meeting to order. And the first item is going to be the Pledge of Allegiance by Commissioner Allred.
Please stand. Where did I? Ready, begin. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, do we have any disclosures or declarations of conflict from commission members? Nope. Does everybody agree with the agenda order? Anybody want to make any changes on the order, on the agenda? I would take a motion to approve it.
Second one.
Need a motion?
I motion to approve the agenda.
Okay.
I second.
I have a motion and a second. We'll take a vote.
Aye.
Aye. All right, and we are going to need a motion to table the minutes for April 13th, 2022. They are not ready yet, right?
I didn't find those in my packet. Yeah. I didn't have a packet, so. Yeah, okay, good. I'll make a motion that we table item C, review of the minutes.
Okay, we have a motion
Second.
and a second. We'll take a vote.
Aye.
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 Okay.
I have a question about those minutes. Can those be included in the city council packet for next week if they haven't been approved yet?
I don't know.
Because they need to be able to see those for it. It has to go change the original ones. So she'll finish them, but I'm just saying, I don't know if they can be included in the packet if you haven't approved.
It's still public information, right? So
Okay, so, yeah, okay.
They're supposed to be viewable by the general public within so many days, and I don't know how that is. We gotta work on it. Maybe
like 60 days, but I
Well,
don't
we can see.
see why they couldn't be.
Okay, consider it.
I'm not a lawyer.
They've been signed, and I don't know.
Yeah, I just don't know if council can review a draft copy of minutes. Maybe approved outside there.
Okay, we'll skip the public forum because there's no one here to talk about the public forum. And reports, I do not have anything to report at this time. Does any of the commissioners have anything to report? No? Okay, what about Mr. Darren Lefevre, Planning and Zoning Administrator?
So as of right now, just kind of on your radar for next month, we will have a public hearing on a amended plat for the Tokerville Heights area. Up there, we have lot 16 and 15 are going to join together and become one lot. So that'll be on your agenda for next month as a public hearing. So people will have the ability to come in and it's just like our regular rules of a public hearing. People are notified 100 feet of the property.
that's really all we have. If we do the, on the business items,
On the, do need to have you guys look at that tonight and see if you're able to move that on to the city council. So,
Okay.
as of right now, that's all I have.
Alrighty. That makes it pretty easy. We'll move to the business items. And did you have any complaints or anything on that? Does anybody have any discussion on business items 1 through 5?
I just have a question. As I was reading through the nightly rental code, it says that they can't have a nightly rental that's separate from their home?
Mhm.
No, there's at least one that I'm aware of. that
There's
is-
three that were approved before the nightly rental code was actually in place. There's three in Tocqueville. Mm-hmm. So,
Terminology grandfather.
Oh. What's the right word for it?
It's more of a non-conforming use.
Okay.
If the code changes after they allow it.
so once something changes on that, I agree with that.
Like if they ever sold the property, then they'd have to reapply, like new owners wouldn't be able to get an application in?
That is correct.
Permit follows the property.
Well, conditional use will, yeah, runs with the property, but if you've already got a nightly rental that's running on there right now, you can't come in for another one because you can't have two. It would still fall under the new code. So, other than that,
Can't have two. Can't have more than two.
Separate properties though, right?
Right here in your approved.
yeah, but it has to be separate properties. It can't be on the same property. Yeah, that is correct. Yes, it does. Well,
So if we
I'll make a motion on business items F 1 through 5 that we approve them for renewal.
we have a motion,
I'll second that motion that we approve items 1 through 5 on the business items.
we have a motion and a second. We'll take a vote.
Aye.
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 All right, so that takes us to business item number 6 on the discussion on the nightly rental. So I want to make sure that everybody's on the same page because I did kind of the same thing as I printed the one out that was in our file. That was in our file first, but the one that we got to work off is the one that was in the last week's or the last month's meeting, which is the one that we have the public input for. The one that you guys like that is printed here that was in there is Sean or Commissioner Huntsman's draft that he would like to see, which I think he's got some okay information. So I think the best thing we should do is, can you pull that one up just so that everybody can see it?
Not the red line one?
Yeah, with the green and that. So if we can just go to like number 2, it says the nightly rental permit applicant must include a detailed drawing to standard engineering scale site plan for the lot showing additional parking stalls, existing and proposed building and existing streets. Does anybody have any problems with that? Okay, so that part's staying, right? So let's just jump.
Just the way it reads, right?
Yep, let's jump down to C. So this is, like I said, this is the changes that were submitted, and he doesn't have them really highlighted in that one. So C, 1 structure, each nightly rental must occur within and under one roof of a dwelling and not in a structure that is temporary. Accessory structures can create multifamily zoning and shall not be used as nightly rentals. More specifically, detached casitas, garage, workshops, mother-in-law buildings that cannot be used as a nightly rental. Anybody have an issue with that? No?
Just,
I think it's
just the
fine.
question that I brought up is if they've been previously proved they're grandfathered in, then
Except for you can't say
They're
grandfather.
existing non-conforming.
That's very good.
Non-conforming.
You got it right.
Yeah.
Well, then that reads the same as what he's got here.
Changed a little bit to it.
correct. And that was kind of input from both Joey and myself.
That want to do it in a second building, but the way that when it says under one roof, and that's why we actually put in there, it creates a multifamily zoning because now you have 2 families renting a different property, a different building on one property. That's
Except
what
for there's kind of an exception. There was one last month where it was like one home where they sectioned off a part and they lived in one and rented a part, but as long as it's under one roof.
It's attached, yeah, it's attached to
It's
the roof
attached.
home, yeah. So no one has any problems with that part?
There's probably a couple extra periods there, but just in.
Okay. dot, dot, dot,
dot, dot, dot. Okay. We can definitely do that.
Maybe is take really good notes on what we're gonna do, because the motion is gonna come from what we change in this right now. When we move it on, or if we move it on. So this, I think, is one of the things that we're gonna run into. E1 is occupancy time limits. Occupancy by the same person is limited to a total of 30 days in any calendar year and shall not exceed 14 consecutive days after a time limit is reached. A renter cannot re-register for a minimum of 48 hours. So my opinion on this, like, I was really like, man, I like that to start with, but if I go back to what we just read, where we can only have people doing this under one roof, now when I look at it in my brain, it says to me, who's going to let someone live in their, rent their nightly rental out for that long, Like, so this is happening under their own roof.
Yeah, but if you look at it from, I've done this, and it's so much easier. I don't like it, but there's so much easier to leave that same person. You're not changing, you're not cleaning, you're not doing nothing. It's just that same person's coming in. It's less work.
But it's still under their roof, so if they want to let them do it, then let them do it, right?
This is an add-on, right? This is
an add-on.
So I have something I found, and I added it in when we talked about it the time before. And then there was a conversation last month around this, and I think it kind of tied up, because it kind of tied into the RV stuff that we were trying to figure out
Yeah,
as
but
well.
now since we're going to do an RV.
Right, and so if we're going to split them out, so I think that's more where it came from. I don't want an RV park to turn into a trailer park. And so that's kind of where that came from. If it's an actual home, because somebody said if they want to pay top dollar to do a nightly rental, $1. So is there anything in our code, I haven't read them all, so forgive me, that separates a nightly rental from a property? Do we have anything for long-term stuff at all?
No,
So if somebody wants to use it as Airbnb and pays and charge them $300 a night, then good on them, and I don't think it matters so much on the.
That doesn't happen because the Airbnb won't let that happen. They'll make you reduce your rate or encourage you to reduce that rate for a long-term stay.
But this doesn't have to be Airbnb, I could just look at one
Being-
classified.
yeah, it's hard to, they control you.
So they were just trying to say, like, sometimes people come in for business for a few months and they don't want to, we can't find anywhere to go, so they'll pay, so something will pay the higher rate for these types of things. So
Is
I
there
think
any,
I'm okay taking this off. Should there be any exceptions though, or any limitation?
I think we strike it in the nightly rental.
So I think we're
you
going
you
to
get into a
strike,
long-term situation when you start going over 30 days and you're really not a nightly rental.
but their argument was if they want to pay nightly rental price.
If they want to
Oh,
pay.
yeah, I mean, that's the way to go if they're gonna be, and actually, you look at it in sense of that, they're more used to the neighborhood, they're not wandering around lost, they're more acquainted, and you have less, I think you have less impact,
I think since
letting them
it's a
stay
private,
longer, let them stay as long as they want.
since it's a private,
It is a
property,
private thing.
instead of it being a commercial price.
There's, so Will and agreeing, so we're going to strike that?
I think I'm okay to strike it. My only concern is because we refer to it for the RV part. Are we going to?
We're gonna look at an RV
Are we
park
going to try
tonight.
to send both so that you're going together and being done together?
No, when we get further in it, we're gonna have a discussion on an RV park, and there's a pretty good template in here.
I know it's
Yeah,
part of
so
what
we're gonna discuss that. So I think if we can get the other code started, then we can scratch it out of here, that's my opinion. But before we move past that one, I want to back up, because on Sean's thing, on the nightly rental, right at the very top, it says non-commercial what?
It's non-commercial zones.
Non.
Nightly rentals should occur in a non-commercial zone, because a commercial zone, you're gonna move into motels, RV parks that rent cabins, but they're in a commercial zone, so this needs to be strictly in non-commercial, because this is in your house, my house, whoever's house. This is what in my opinion, this is what this code is for.
It is,
It's
but
for homes.
this is the problem, and I've had the same discussion with Sean, is that, let's say someone comes in and wants to do, which it actually wouldn't fit, let's say we excluded, someone did a commercial or highway commercial zone, and they wanted to do Airbnbs, what's the one in Hurton called, Dan? What is that? It's a zone though, it's a nightly rental zone? Recreational zone. So now you have nightly rentals occurring in a recreational zone. that are not covered. So my thing is that I want to take that out because I don't want that to happen. I want to force people to motels and hotels and rentals that have an on-site manager at all times. That's what I would like to see Tokerville. And the reason this whole code was written is to keep Tokerville in its small hometown feel and not have that. So if we completely eliminate the commercial zones, there are loopholes that people can jump in here and do things.
Yeah, it's just amazing in a commercial zone that they would try to pull that off.
Well, they still have to come through, if it's commercial, they have to get it.
There's some things there, but if we have this to meet that criteria, then it's just an extra layer of protection so that we don't have, like,
Well, there's things in here.
Darren can attest to this, is that recreational zone is the largest. The cops spend more time in that recreational zone in Turkin than any other place, right? On the weekends. And
Well, and in
and these
here,
are high scale, upscale places. They're not cheap.
These are $400, $500.
are those ones,
They're
on the edge of the next to the coffee shop?
The ones I'm referring to are over just down the street from the Intermountain Healthcare there, just this north on almost 600 north. I think they're somewhere in there, and they are a residential residential zoning that they created for this type of thing.
Best option to not unstrict it, but what's going to protect us more? I mean, in non-commercial zone, if you think there's a loophole to sneak through, then
Yeah.
That's why I don't want to put that in there, because nightly rental for the whole city at the same time, right?
let's just strike it out,
So
and
when-
it makes sense.
Yeah, so it's something that Sean has added, and I just wanted to make sure that, because it's not in there right now. It's not, when you look at this other one, this is the one you should really be looking at. It's the same thing. That's Sean's draft
Yeah, I'm just
version.
looking at the drafts.
So
So-
there's other things in here though, like where they have to have their resident requirements, they have to be a resident of the so you can't have business people that come in and just
Yeah.
build and have to make extra money.
Under F2, it talks about the 51% deal, and then not having no more than 2 dwellings within the pools occur. So
It's been 14 days and it's on.
You want that in there.
Yep.
Yeah, no, I'm not saying to take it out. I'm saying I think we have some other coverages for some of the other line items.
I think that if we really got to a point where we got to start working on something like that, we'll revisit it or make another code that's just for
And it's okay.
that zone, right?
Yeah,
So-
you can't get a hold of anybody besides the owner. You know, you can call the service or whoever he's babysitting, and you're not going to get no help. That's why you put that in there a long time ago, to get that straight.
Keep people there, keep people accountable for their nightly rentals.
Right, and that's why I was saying, I think, like the idea of people coming into these other zones, I mean, unless they're residents of the city, just let them consider when that comes up. Do we have anything else on that other one?
Well, I didn't want to skip that one, so I think that, so if we're good with scratching the occupancy time limits, then we'll move to the next part, R, which I want to bring, I like actually how Sean has done this on his, which, he put R, exclusions or hotels, motels, RV parks shall not be held to this requirement of the nightly rental code. So if we put it how Sean has it, that's the one that's in the Dropbox. And it's this one that he had in there. Yep. So I really like how he has this laid out, and then you go back into R1 or RV park shall conform to the requirements of 1017A-11 RV park ordinance. I think we need to delete that line, the green line, just because we don't have that ordinance in there yet. We can always add that back in.
Is the green line showing me everything below the green line? Is that in with the green line?
That's just kind of his
Because-
second version of his
Because
draft.
the second version, you're wandering all over the page here with model homes and
Well, that's what we're gonna get to. So now we're gonna do exceptions, right? Because this is something that's been asked for, which we talked about this quite a bit.
I like the separation there, but before we get past the RV part, since we don't have an RV ordinance in place to reference, in case there's problems that we run into along the journey of
So-
doing that, should we at least add some of the occupancy limits here?
No, because the approval that's happened on the nightly rental, or the RV park that is made right now, the motion was made that they are subject to the future code. So they know, and actually I had a small conversation with one of them today about that, but they know that they're gonna be subject to the new code. So then it's the only one that's on the horizon, right? So we're gonna have time they haven't broke ground yet.
So we're just gonna strike R1 and leave it blank for now, and then,
Yeah.
and then do a modification to this when we're ready to submit the RV ordinance.
Yeah, if we need to, we can just put a reference, and it doesn't even need to be R1, just say, it can just say see
Actually,
this
it doesn't need
code,
to say
right?
anything, it's just an ordinance they have to comply with. Okay.
So we'll strike that, and then, so when we get to S exceptions, so model homes located within a subdivision for which the sale will be made will be allowed with the following conditions. The subdivision shall be planned for more than 100 dwelling units, no more than 5 model homes shall be allowed. All requirements of 1017-3 nightly rental code shall be met, excluding item G. Oh, you made it.
So 3, so you can strike 3 since we don't have that anymore.
What's
So
that?
no, never mind.
No, so-
Excluding item G should be.
Yeah, I think we can leave that now because that was the big thing that everybody got. We should, all requirements of 1017-3. Basically, that's subjecting that the model homes still have to get conditional use permits. They still have to do everything except for meet the ownership requirements. And then number 4, a conditional use permit is required by the planning commission.
Do we need to go under, my only thought was on the subdivision where it says shall be planned for more than 100 dwelling units and no more than 5. Are they gonna think that's 5 per 100 or 5 per subdivision
No.
that is at least 100? Like if they
No.
did 200 homes in one, can they have 10?
The way that reads to me is that a subdivision has to have a minimum of 100 dwellings planned, right? So if you have 50 dwellings planned in your subdivision, you don't get anything. But the max number, you can have no more than 5. This is how I read that. You guys read it differently?
Yeah, you can't get 2.5 if you only have 50 dwellings, so.
You can't get any, right? You have to have more than 100 dwellings. And the reason when we had this conversation last time was that it was really hard to actually come up with a number, but what we don't want is somebody that gets, let's say there's a small 20 lot subdivision. We don't need a sales office in a 20 lot subdivision that does a nightly rental. So that's not really what we wanted to have happen in them. And then, they build it as a model home and use it as a nightly rental until it sells, and they build another one, they build another one, they build another one. So the whole intent was to make sure that it's big developers that can actually use this and that they're going to use it properly.
I would ask Austin, I can't remember what we talked about, so I apologize. Are there any limitations of how long they can use some of the model homes, so it's not like a permanent rental, or we don't care?
It's going to follow the conditional use permits, and then as that section of stuff gets filled out, they'll just sell them as homes. Just like, then once they're sold, they don't meet the requirements anymore. Right?
Well,
Developer.
unless there's changes in market things, and then they're not selling them, they're just using the rentals.
Yeah,
We
well,
care?
no, I mean they're allowed to do the 5 nightly rentals, right?
Oh, for this one,
Yeah.
yeah.
So, I know you're gonna work on your RV thing here, but you're hedging this to have the same rules as the nightly rentals as in your RV park for these, but it doesn't spell it out. I think there's,
Well, we need
might
to
be stepping in something here.
let's make sure we separate them. So number 1 is this is not really what the wording I'm looking at here. So
Well, you're looking at this. I've been following you on both pages.
oh, you know what? That's still not in there. We need to make sure that that's in there in the RV parks. The no more than 15%.
I have a question about that 15%.
Mhm.
Because the way it reads, RV parks shall not have more than 15% of on-site structures
as nightly rentals.
as nightly rentals. Well, RV parks aren't gonna have structures other than a clubhouse maybe.
Yeah,
and-
They're gonna have cabins, camping
Cabins,
cabins,
I
tiny
know.
homes, which is on a foundation, which is a
Right.
nightly rental.
Right, but that will be their only, permanent things there. The rest will be like trailer parks, right?
Mhm.
So they can't have more than 15% of on-site structures.
You don't wanna have
As nightly
1,000
rentals.
tiny homes and 25 RV spots.
I know, but it's the wording.
It's not worded well, but we
It's-
should finish
it's-
this one and then do that one.
It's a little
Well, actually-
confusing, I have to admit, but
Actually, what we need to do is in R, we need to put that sentence in, we need to put that sentence in R, that RV parks, whatever the wording is that we want to put in there, we just need to get that in
Shouldn't
there.
it be in the RV ordinance and not here?
No, we need to put it in this one for now, for nightly rentals, because we need to cap their nightly rentals inside the RV parks. Then we'll make it redundant from there.
So it'll be in both places, in case somebody thinks that they're going to, that
Make an
they're
RV
gonna
park
follow
and
this, and they
So
won't.
make an RV park and only do structures.
for some reason I want that out of there. Because I think it's collusive with your nightly rentals, but I guess if it's in both and reads the same, then you're covered, I guess.
Then you'll also need to exclude them from G and if you're gonna put anything in there.
Because they will, I mean, they're planning on tiny homes out there right now.
Right,
So they'll have to go in for each tiny home and get a nightly rental permit.
but we need to say no more than
Actually,
15%
if
of their total.
I think we need to build it,
No,
I think we need to
because-
build it into the RV ordinance, not here.
These are exclusions, so
Right.
RV parks, hotels, and motels are excluded from this thing,
Right,
except for, on the RV parks, shall not have more than 15%.
But it shouldn't be
Shouldn't-
15% of structure, it should be 15% of the rent.
their
Nightly
area.
15% of
Of the
nightly
total
rental
lots.
structures.
The total lot. If they have 100, if they have 100 regular spots, then they can't have more than
Yeah, it'd be the same thing.
15.
So those, you wouldn't consider every trailer spot a structure.
Right,
No, it's not a structure. A
just-
tiny
it's
home
just
or a cabin would
structures.
be a structure.
right. But if you can only have 15% of the tiny homes as rentals, that doesn't make sense.
So it's 15, it's trying to say 15% of what? So for me, it should be 15% of their total RV lots.
Their
If you
area,
have,
yes.
if you want to do, I wouldn't even do square footage, because I think we need to try to put things around that. I think if you have 10 trailer spots, or,
Say total 10 or 15% of total rentable units,
right,
rentable spaces, you can say whatever you want.
we,
Yes,
Real-
yeah, that would work,
There's some-
yes. Right, yeah.
in this one.
Yeah, it's,
Because we're
you
saying-
gotta get it out of this nightly thing. It's,
Wanna
I mean, I'm
scratch it
sitting
there?
there
I think the
batting my
RV
head
ordinance,
on why we're doing nightly rentals and all of a sudden we come down to, we're worried about the
Well,
RV.
we were trying to combine it because we
Yes.
needed we didn't have a nightly rental one ready. So we were trying to
Well, we
defeat
have a
two
nightly
things.
rental one already on the plan.
Yeah,
We have
so you're right. Let's scratch it from here
and just get more
and
details in the
we'll
RV
get more
one.
detail and we'll put it in that one.
'Cause,
How
yeah,
fast
I mean,
are they
we need
planning to have
We need to
that
finish
ready?
up the nightly rental and then move on to the
RV
RV.
park, I meant,
I don't know.
We won't be confused.
So as far as how Sean has it written in his draft, which is that last page there, this is how I really I like how Sean's draft is, which is the red one up here on the screen.
I didn't read
For
through
that.
all of the black text though, does it match everything you know?
The black text is the permanent code. That's stuff that's unchanged.
So he
That's the code that is existing right now.
just didn't have the green and yellow pieces in here, so I think we should use that one and then just update R and S,
Update RNS
And
to
remove-
make this and remove the
E1.
R1. Well, we're going to keep R, but remove R1
And
And
remove
John's.
E1.
and E1, the things.
Oh, okay, E1, yep.
Yep.
Yep. We talked about that a little bit. last time.
E's the time limits.
Yeah, strike that right out. This is okay because it's basically telling this nightly rental person here that or the RV park can't look in this guy, can't look in it because it doesn't concern them.
You know what we could
They
do?
got their own ordinance right there.
We could, if we wanted to leave, just say RV park shall conform to the requirements of the RV park ordinance. We could leave that in there
Yep.
and not have to, can just scratch the numbers out of there.
I
Since we
agree.
don't have any numbers, then it's got to be
So we're
fine.
just using this right here for now.
Yeah. Daisy, do you know all the
And then
changes
take it
there?
out, add it in.
So let me ask you something else. Why do we not have a limit on B&Bs and nightly? Every town, every citizen, St. George, Lead, and anybody has a limit on nightly rentals now.
They just took them all off.
I
St.
don't
George just did.
understand why. Is there a legal reason why?
No, but somebody was here last month and she brought it up on action.
Perkins battle and Laverkins battle, they're clamping down. Now, when they grow, they get more.
The Virkin doesn't require you to be a resident to have a nightly rental.
Neither does Hurricane.
Laverkin runs wild, though. Let me tell you, I had one over
The
there.
thing that really is going to limit ours is that you can have to be a resident and you can only have two. So you have to be a permanent resident, not just a temporary resident.
Both of them can't be on, there's two of them, they can't both be on the same property.
They have to be different properties.
So they have to play multiple houses.
So-
They're only live in plus whatever.
They
they're
need to,
renting.
yeah, and they can own a house, they can rent out a room in their house as a nightly rental, and they can own a second house as an Airbnb. And that's their max, right? So that's gonna be our limit, really. I mean, how many people, or you're gonna own a house and you're gonna own three houses and rent two of them out. That's
Well-
Airbnbs. I know you
You got
got
the-
like 6 or 7 houses.
You got the illegalness of what goes on in Tocqueville now, and why don't we have limits on it? What's the staff's opinion on, why don't we have limits, say 15% of the?
I'm not exactly sure how this ordinance that's before you right that's currently on the books got adopted. When I was mayor, we did that 3,000 foot circle thing. Remember that? 1,000 foot or whatever it was, kind of limited out so you didn't get multiples right next to each other right now.
We just try to, that's how we try to learn. I believe state code might have something now that they passed. I think people looked at that legislature since in the last 5 years, because it says you can't limit the amount you have. That's in the code, but I can go look. I can get back to you.
I think St. George just said you can use your nightly rentals for long-term, short-term, whatever you can do to provide housing to people. That's what they just did.
City of St. George had a 53% increase in homelessness last year. And so they're like, if you have an accessory dwelling, consider that, and then they're, yeah.
They opened the floodgates.
Because you're gonna have snowbirds, and they're gonna rent them houses out or whatever they do in your closed subdivision.
Except for,
Gated.
if I was a neighbor, I think I'd rather have somebody there for a month or two than change them every day.
They're,
That was an option.
I don't think Firelight
That is-
CC&Rs
that is-
allow
that's a
that
lot
either.
better.
They still have the rentals, but it's not,
Well,
it's not in a single family home.
the residents that buy the homes and will live in there will do that. Sun River does it now. I mean, half the people don't even live there, so they're renting their homes out or doing what they want to do. It's an undisclosed problem you're gonna have, but maybe it won't be a problem because it's a gated community, we'll never see it.
Yeah, they'll have it. It's something.
I just,
But they publish their-
I'm looking through this code and I'm looking through the appendices and I'm trying to figure out the general plan, and the hearsay is, well, there was only 17 people that made the general plan. Well, in here, there's 119 to 126 comments on each item. And there's some items that are addressing the bed and breakfasts and addressing lots and sizes and things like that. And I'm just having a hard time why we're not trying to adhere to this vision that we did adopt in 2017. So I was just bringing the limits up just to, do we need some kind of protection, or are we going to be overran with
I think we better check the state code and see if, because I know that Heath's interpretation when the 1,000 foot thing came, and it had to be dropped because it wasn't fair, right? Because that, just because this
That
guy.
was too
you know,
broad. That was way too broad. I mean, you couldn't.
So I think
couldn't
I
get
think the legal interpretation might be more. I
Well,
think we
I was
better ask
trying-
Keith about
I
that.
was trying to put that in because I want to have people visiting, not living, but then that was their argument. If it's a house and you're, whether you're, because you can rent your house out for a 12-month lease without, I don't know, you have to get permission from us for that.
You can do whatever you want.
So
Long-term rental is whatever you want to do, yeah.
So
A lot of them create a multi-family residence situation.
right,
Yeah.
if you just wanted to rent your house, you could rent your house.
You can't rent out the garage in the back.
Right.
Home in the front.
So if they're renting it for longer than 30 days, if they leave it as an Airbnb or the nightly rental, I shouldn't use a company name. If they're using a nightly rental and somebody wants to rent it for 6 days and nothing knows, then what does it matter?
Well, he's just worried about the limit, the total number.
You're gonna be overran. Everybody.
Oh, you're talking about total for the city, like we don't allow more than 100?
Total allowed, you know, we got 600 homes here, 10%, you got 60 Airbnbs now, so 10% now. Where do you want to stop and start?
Let's start negotiations. I say 20,000. I'm just kidding.
How many homes do we have in Tocqueville?
About 775.
And how many nightly rentals do we have?
I
I'm like, what? No.
think 600 homes?
No, we've got.
And you've got,
Well, so in Hurricane right now, I know that they have a cap and then they have a waiting list. And so there are people waiting, but what that's created is a bunch of illegal. So not, basically people don't come and have a,
Tocqueville could collect all the people that's not paying right now, you'd be a lot better off, but you can't, you can't.
But there's not like they're waiting because there's a limit, they're just doing it. And that's just
I got
their
nothing
problem.
against Airbnbs and RVs, I mean.
Well, we don't.
Very rare, you can have a party but it happens.
Well, we've overheard that there's a lot of people buying up homes so they can turn them into rentals, right? So I think that's the concern, is people list their homes, how many do we want to just be bought out by somebody? But we still have our rule, you have to be a resident, so that can't happen too. That becomes, I think, our
That's-
saving grace.
That's our nice thing about it, you can,
Yeah, I think that kind of limits it somewhat because.
It does.
A lot of people won't just go.
The businesses can't come get them all.
If they're getting this investment, they're gonna, if they want to live somewhere else, they want to just buy it.
That kind of falls back to the exact same
I
thing.
think
You got to be a resident here,
I believe
that helps a lot.
That's why I wanted to scratch that, is because, that's how we
Commercial.
keep that small hometown feel here, is we don't allow these great big tract Airbnb subdivisions and,
Yep.
that's how we keep it that way.
I think with the clause
You're
about being
always
a
gonna have
resident,
the
that
people
covers us, so
cheap.
we don't need to know.
I just threw the limit out there, that's something you can look at, but we need to adopt this,
Yeah, we
and
do.
that could be added later.
We should take a peek.
Through.
We'll look at-
yeah, I'll verify that.
The council can get it so you're protected and move on to the monster.
That's a baby.
It's not a monster. It won't be that bad.
Okay, so,
The monster.
R1 and just take out the number.
let's just recap for Daisy. So, we're gonna, on the draft ordinance, we're gonna strike E1. And then we're gonna come back to R. And we're gonna go with Sean's version, R and S. And in R1, we're gonna strike the reference to the numbers. So 10-17A-11, we're gonna strike that section. Or we can strike of 10-2.
To conform with the requirement of the RV park ordinance.
Of the, whatever makes a proper sentence.
Keep them R and 1. You say you're gonna keep R and 1.
And S.
And S?
Yep.
So we have to cover the model home piece.
That's just a whole different, that's a subdivision. You're talking S, it's a subdivision.
Right.
You got a model
You
home
have,
thing,
you have
right?
to have 100 homes to be able to use 5 of them. And what, like when you look at all these Brio Desert Color, all these people, they have these model homes where someone can come and stay, sleep the night.
Yeah, yeah,
And,
I do.
and that's what this is for, that model home section. These will have to be conditional use permits. They're only allowed 5 at any given time, but their tract has to be over 100 to allow this to happen.
Just the wording to me,
As with that, I just do want to say what especially with Rio, and I actually live one street off of where that you told me Rio, I live right here and all of their homes are right here. And they have like the, anyway, so with that, I actually like those things there. Because what that does is the HOA is like crazy about your yard will be so clean, you will not leave your garbage in and out past 10, 15. Take it out of your garden, and it's, you're crazy. I love it because everything is very, very tiny. But yeah, I actually like that strip of those because they use those babies for all of their phases. And so until that's filled out, like mine for the first phase, mine actually was on the model. And then now they have the other phase from it, so now they just have to use those for every single phase. So it's actually, I never even see it to know if they're worded on, but there are people who are serious about buying them, and the HOA keeps everything so tight because they're trying to sell them.
they do. And
They don't allow any sort of dead grass.
I don't mind it either, but
So I actually.
How are you gonna find that?
In that.
how are you gonna find that?
It's for the
If you're
new-
building that subdivision, putting model homes, are you gonna go through your nightly rentals to see what you can do, or are you gonna go through some other ordinance? How are they gonna get to this?
They have to be united.
So the way this
They
came
would
up,
have to be, yes.
the way this came up is that the developer already asked for this, right? That's the only reason this came up. And the developer and the attorney told them you can't do it. It doesn't meet the code, right?
We're
So
changing
it
the
doesn't
code.
meet the code. They can't do it, period, unless we put it in there, which,
And Joey, we probably need to omit a couple other ones, because part of F is referring to ownership too, and F1,
Shall be held.
we probably need to look at those two and exclude those. from
Not be
the
held to
model.
that.
the other one.
RV parks, confirm of this, exception. It's just, we're not talking about anything to do with that until we get lost in here and we're excluding motels that, and then we're going to RV parks, got to conform to this, and then we're going to the exception. I would never find that if I was looking for that to see if I could do
It
that.
is a nightly rental, so don't look for that. Renting a model home is a nightly
And
rental.
the city employees will direct that.
Yeah, sure. I don't stay
So,
out tonight.
yeah.
So this is gonna be actually part of,
Okay, I can see you. I just, the wording doesn't look
So I kind of agree that we were,
heathen like me.
we could separate it into its own ordinance as well, but I think for right now, let's just kind of cover it to get it there for while they're doing the building. But I was concerned, so F, it says the city's intent of amendment.
Before you move on to that, on S3, I guess it would be, right? Because these are all, 1, 2, 3, 4 are all about model homes.
Yep.
Please change that to met, that last word to word instead of meet.
okay, got that, Daisy?
It is met.
I'm an editor and that drives me nuts when I
Funny.
see things like that.
I see all kinds too. It does say met on his other one.
Well, I changed it on mine, but I want to make sure that Daisy gets it.
Yeah, meet and met are a whole different.
That's Sean's typo, yeah.
So Joey, on F, it says nightly
I'll have to hit
rental
him up on
owners that are absent from Tocqueville for periods of time exceeding 14 days, blah, 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 shall be subject to revocation of their permit. So that should be excluded, but at the same time, the last sentence saying the owner must have an emergency contract on file, that should probably be there. I'm thinking we need to split F.
We're gonna have a hard time splitting all them.
I just meant, I think you just make that owner must have emergency on file with its own number. Because that first part doesn't apply to model homes, and neither does F1.
Well,
A natural person who owns the controlling interest of a dwelling within the.
so they're gonna, they have to meet requirements of F1 because they're gonna have to retain ownership of it.
But it's not a person, and it's a business, so the next one says a business entity which a natural person holds the interest of at least 51%. So if are these business, the builders coming in, are they 100% owners, or are they split out? I don't know how they're split
Well,
out.
they're gonna have a controlling interest, one person, one, so either way, it doesn't matter if we strike them or not to me, the way I read it. Yeah,
They have to live there, whoever.
well, this is for the model
This is
homes
for the model
only.
home,
So
sorry.
this is excluding, if we need to exclude I mean, we could exclude F and G, and that would cover 1 and 2, right?
I would be concerned about it. I think Tuckerville should still have an emergency contact on file. So I would, that's part of F. The owner must have an emergency contact.
So
on file.
we could simply say on, it's gonna be, on 3, S3, that they must meet all requirements of 1017-3 nightly rental code shall be met, excluding items F and G.
Do like a 3A.
Well, and with exceptions of having an emergency contact on file. We could just add that into that sentence.
That's fine. I just wanted to,
Yeah.
I think F was just didn't apply to some of this.
We could add that easily. You got that, David? Okay.
Is the model home in the gated community?
Okay. So what the developer actually wanted is they wanted 9. They wanted 9 model homes in multiple portions of the subdivision
Of the gated community.
of the adult community. The
Adult community, let the thing burn down because you've got no control over it.
Yeah.
There's no rules there. You can't govern it. It's just, it's gated.
Well, they're doing a whole bunch of different subdivisions though, so we have to write it
Would
to
apply
apply
to
to all of
those.
them.
Think you got it.
You good? Everybody's good with it?
Are you gonna post this for us to read one more time to make sure that?
We're gonna make a motion. That's why I'm asking Daisy to do it, is because we're gonna make a motion.
We're gonna do it.
We need to make a motion to move it to city council.
Yeah,
Well, that's what she'll do. What we have to do, and this is a good lesson for future, is in the motion, we need to make everything that we're gonna change outside of the one that was published for the public notice. Right? So this was what the opinion came in on and they had their comment on.
The green and yellow was there last time, right?
That's the green and yellow one, right? So we need to add in a motion, it would be, we're gonna recommend this draft ordinance for approval, minus E1, right? And then we're gonna come back here also with the changes that R is the exclusion of the hotels.
Need to be read out in the
R1,
motion.
it's easier to read it out because then it's very clear. That's why I've been writing it down the whole time, but I'm not making the motion,
I
right?
know, I was just trying to go through and make some notes for you.
F and G must have emergency contact.
Up here was not in the public hearing.
Huh?
It
No,
wasn't-
but
it wasn't-
it was close, but that's why we're gonna I like this version, so we're gonna make the motion to include this version of it.
In the one last month, it was there, just on a big paragraph form, and now
See,
they split it out.
This is what it was, and this is what it is. Well, we're gonna make a motion to change it to.
Want me to try?
Sure.
She's like, yeah, you do it.
Got this,
So
Daisy?
that one part about the commercial was never in the green and yellow, the one, his
The
proposal.
top one, yeah, no, it never was.
All right, I would like to make a motion to recommend approval of the nightly rental ordinance changes draft, where we will be removing section E1. We will be updating section R to be worded exclusions, hotels, motels, and RV parks shall not be held to the requirements of this nightly rental code. We'll be adding R1 to state RV parks shall conform to the requirements of the RV park ordinance. We will be adding section S, exceptions. Model homes located within a subdivision for which sales will be made will be allowed with the following conditions, semicolon. Number 1, the subdivision shall be planned for more than 100 dwelling units. Number 2, no more than 5 model homes shall be allowed. Number 3, all requirements of 10-17-3 of the nightly rental code shall be met, excluding items F and G. Period. That the owner must have an emergency contact on file with Tokerville City. And then number 4, a conditional use permit is required by the planning commission.
I second it.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. We'll take a vote. Aye.
Aye.
Okay.
Printed.
And Renter code is moved on. I like it.
It's just a little tweak in it is all. We just tweaked it for what reason, I don't know. Just to make that.
Okay, so that takes us to business item 7, which is a discussion of the Washington County Water Conservancy District Landscape Ordinance and a possible recommendation. So we have a couple of them in the folder, but no one has had even 5 minutes to look at it. But Darren or Afton, do you have any guidance for us on this? I mean, is the city council wanting to adopt this? Or, I myself have seen it before and I think it's complete trash.
I didn't see it there yesterday.
Yeah.
So this ordinance is from Water Conservancy. Joey was here. It's actually been before council and they asked Planning Commission to take a look at it. And then it got tabled to Planning Commission and it's just never resurfaced. So we just need to know what you'd like to do with it. City council was like, let's see what Planning Commission thinks about it. So it's just on here for a discussion item so that it doesn't get lost in that. Obviously, Water Conservancy would like to have us adopt it. The main points about it, City of St. George actually went way
recommending, and so did Santa Clara. So the sector had theirs on for council like last month to adopt it, so they've done. And then the City of St. George, they're just going back and forth in legal and redrafting. But they both went more strict because it doesn't apply to residents who are here. Like it applies to people living in. And basically what it does is it limits them. Some of them are going 600 square feet, some of them are going 200 square feet of grass, but it limits them to. And if they want more than that, they have to pay. So.
This would
And
be,
it takes the right to have more than that in new landscape. So the landscaping ordinance basically says, hey, if you want to build a house, it's very in-depth, it's very detailed, and it's simplifying it, but I'm just saying basically kind of main point of it is like, if you're something new coming to town and you want to have grass, you're going to have to pay.
Is this going to apply to existing residents that are changing their yard?
It's new.
Only new buildings? Does that say that here? I'm trying to look.
Yeah, this
Well,
is a big
what-
ordinance, so it's just back on here for you to review.
What I-
If you table it, it's fine, so that everyone has a chance to read it.
So basically it's like an, I don't want to say
But hold
HOA,
on
but
there,
it's
so
kind of like a
hold on,
plan.
Kind
Andrea.
of, but it's from Water Conservancy, and there's obviously.
So hold on, we don't even know if we're looking at the right draft there. So what I would suggest is,
No changes have been made yet.
well, there's two, isn't there 2 of them in there?
Another one was.
Only one?
No changes have been made yet.
It wasn't there this morning either.
Yeah.
No, it wasn't. But yeah,
So if
yeah,
we-
I did go back and find where it was in the minutes. Yeah, it was a long time ago. So that's what I'm saying. It's fine if this gets tabled, just so that everybody's aware. The Water Conservancy District would like us to adopt this plan. They understand if we make changes to it, most cities have. One thing that we could do is we could contact Santa Clara and St. George and have them send theirs. Compare to what they did.
I'd like to read another one,
To read one from another city.
just to see,
Well, we
just to
we
see some
have-
of what they changed. They've already adopted them into
But
theirs.
I think Santa Clara has actually adopted theirs, and I think that City of St. George, they had said they were going stricter, and then it went back and forth for years, so.
We have a landscaping ordinance already in place too, so we need to combine the two and without superseding things and conflicting. So, or just scratch one and start over. So
Right, the one that
This-
you're looking at up there, this was actually drafted by, this was by Water Conservancy. This was not drafted by, drafted by Water Conservancy.
We do have a landscape one.
So-
we do, yeah. So what we need to do, or what I think we should do, since no one's looked at them, is if we can get a copy emailed to everybody that, and make sure it's the right one, because I think there might be some confusion on which one is what, because I know there's two drafts out there right now.
Of this landscape one for Water Conservancy.
I think so.
I've only seen the one.
There's 2 dates, right, Daisy? There's a June and there's an August and and we don't know what the other one
Yeah, the August is the test.
is. It? Okay. So
But
But are
I-
they- they're the same thing.
They, that just read the 2020, just read the 22nd.
There's only one from August 3rd in there.
Will you just drop in there?
Probably just updated it because we didn't. adopt
So,
it.
so that's what I'm saying, before we really take a look at it is let's make sure we have the right document and just email it out to everybody. And then we'll take a look at the Tokerville City Code and get the updated one. And then we'll take a look at it. We'll have a discussion on it. And I think let's just put it for a discussion item on next agenda, not a,
Santa Clara or St. George, you said?
Yeah, we'll just do it.
So we'll get a copy of it.
yes.
I personally like to see Tocqueville stand on its own 2 feet and not be governed or dictated or bullied by the Water Conservancy District.
Well, we don't
Because
have
that's
to
coming
adopt,
down the road.
we don't have to adopt it. I think it's just a starting place.
We all need to conserve, though. We all need to start figuring out a better way to conserve. And maybe we can take ideas from both and create our own. Where we're governed by Tocqueville.
Did you just make a thing saying you're gonna take the lead on this? 'Cause I swear I heard that you just said you're gonna make recommendations to us on this.
Well,
Did you said you're gonna do homework for us?
Concert, I'd read it. I'll read it if I get it. But there's some stuff in there is totally, it's not applicable. It's dingy. It's,
Well, that's what we need is if someone, and what we usually do is if
Tocqueville
someone,
needs to decide how much conservation it wants to do, how much it wants to kill, how much it wants to live. What do you want Tocqueville to look like?
That's up to you guys, the governing bodies, to recommend to the city council.
I know what I want to look like. I know what I want the town to look like, but I don't want to be, I want it to be in the town's control.
Okay.
We make the rules.
I think it's just a starting point. It's kind of like our,
It is.
when I pulled that. from
You're
our
going to end
different
up
ones to start
probably
that.
owning the thing anyway, but
we don't-
yeah, let's just do that and get copies and suggestions and staff and
The other thing
See
that
what
we
people
also
want.
have is our commercial design standards that talk about a lot of landscaping and all that too. So there's like a lot of places that this can really conflict with. And my recommendation, I did read it, my recommendation to the city council was that ours is fine, but that's already my recommendation.
Can we get a copy of our current
Yeah,
landscape one
it's
too?
1025-5 or 1021-5 is ours.
And I get hard
And
copies
then
of
there's
So would we-
other places, it's in 8.111.
it's so much easier to do this.
Would it be
I'd love to
better?
have a code, Tocqueville's code that thick where I could just thumb through it rather than go through a computer.
You can print it out. So
Yeah.
What?
it would be better to maybe
I'm going through that tonight.
ordinance versus taking another
This one completely supersedes. Like that's what we need to do is we need to actually look at it and see how much information overlaps and whether we're just gonna trash one and adopt one, keep what we have or combine.
Okay.
We need to make that decision. I don't.
I got a question for Darren and staff. The new development, Firelight and all that, we are not supplying water. We are not their supplier, right?
Oh, we are,
We are.
we are.
They're doing new wells, right?
We don't have the water. We have the water here. That's all we got in Cotton Well, right?
Yeah, I don't know,
So who's serving it? The Conservancy District?
we are.
I'll tell you what, let's have this conversation after the meeting.
Well, I was getting to a point.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well,
I was getting to a point, if that's gonna change that landscape out there compared to our landscape here.
Correct. It is.
new design standards.
Yeah, there's a, yeah, that's Joey's saying there's a whole.
It's a massive discussion.
Moving on then.
I didn't want to interrupt you from a
That's-
point that you were trying
That's
to make.
okay. I'm driving right back to the point right there.
Yeah.
Yeah, it would, the landscape ordinance would definitely affect that, the water, definitely.
So what we need is, can we make a motion to table it and to move it to the discussion items instead of the business items? Is that a possibility? Action?
Yeah.
Yeah,
For next time?
yeah, we can move it to discussion. We have to table it for this one.
Yeah, council, that's
On a
not what
business.
it's, council's like, we've got to get that back, there, we definitely want to know what kind of commission thinks about this.
Tell them we've been busy.
Okay, they know. Anyhow.
Oh, I'll make that,
motion.
you want,
Okay.
I'll make that motion that we table item 7.
On
7
business item.
of the business items.
Second? Have a motion, do you have a second?
Want to move it to,
It'll
That's in a different motion, isn't it?
I'll second that.
Okay. We have a motion, a second, we'll take a vote.
Aye.
Aye. Okay, and you know what I was gonna do is I was gonna see if we could move the training to after the discussion items, but I forgot to make that in that motion in the agenda, so can we amend the agenda now, or? Okay,
Is this some more training besides what we had a couple of weeks ago?
Yeah, we're gonna watch, it's about a half hour, it's on open public meeting, it's not on.
so if someone were to make a motion to amend the agenda to move F8 to after G2.
I make a motion that we move business item F8 to a discussion item G, after G2.
Okay,
I'll second it.
we have a motion, a second, we'll vote.
Aye.
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 Okay, discussion items. RV park overlay. I would like to skip this one this week again because Darren and Afton were going to read it and they had
You got me all wound up on this one.
yeah.
Oh, I'm loaded for it.
We're coming to the RV park next. This is the resort zone overlay.
Oh, yeah. That's 39 pages of miserable reading.
Yeah. So I would say let's.
We don't have an active application for the urgency,
It's not urgent at all, and it's just a massive document. So
It is. And it needs some work.
69 pages.
yeah. So I would say we skip item 1 on the discussion items and move to item number 2 on the RV park zone or ordinance. And I think what we can do is go through this. I didn't have any question until we actually got down. Did everybody have a chance to read it, breeze through it? I didn't have a question until we got down to density. And I called Darren about it earlier, but I found the information out, which I need to have a conversation with him after this. But the units that I see that were approved is 106 units for the one that's coming up. And so it says the maximum density for recreational vehicle park shall not exceed 16 units per acre. So the one that's actually in front of us, or that's a preliminary plat approval, is for 106 units on 20 acres, which that's about 5 units per acre. That's not very many.
For an RV park?
Yeah.
What size are they?
Well, I mean,
that's like 40 by
probably.
60.
yeah,
They're
smashed in there, but it's
They're not
still-
smashed in there compared to normal RV parks.
Well, that's what I'm saying, is like the one that's there is about 5 or 6, and this one's saying you can go down to 16 units per acre. And that's the only flag, the first flag I saw is do we want to keep.
Yeah, I tried to do the math on that, but I couldn't guess with a 12-foot road and a strip of grass, and a 45-foot RV with parking and somewhere around. I was trying to get how many you could have in an acre, but I can't come up with that proper math to get it because I don't know what the exact layout would be. And we're calling for recreational space of 4,000 plus another 100 for every 10.
So this is from St. George's RV park code too, so I mean, they've obviously adopted 16 in theirs and aren't having that much of an issue.
The 16 on an acre is,
For an
Not
RV,
that many.
it's just really not, so.
that's nice and
What I-
spacey. It'll look nice.
That's what I said when I saw it. I was like, man, that's a lot. But then when I started doing the math and seeing that the other ones have 5, I'm like, oh, that's really not that
Yeah, they're pretty low density up there. I think they're really wanting more, they're gearing towards the RV park more so than the permanent structure cabin.
The one thing, the next one, is, it says each recreational vehicle space shall have a minimum width of 20 feet. So when the RV goes down the road, I think its max width is 8 feet, 6'8" or something like that, right?
Mine's like 8,
8
6.
feet.
And then they do all the pop outs. They'll have a pop out each side, is 4, 5, 6 feet.
Which one are you on?
G,
Maximum you can get is 14 feet wide with pop outs on both
is
sides.
that what it is? So 20 feet should be sufficient?
Yeah,
Because
20
of-
feet, but usually they either got to be long enough that you can put a car behind a motorhome if you're towing it, or somebody else got to pull the side of it. There's got to be an extra room there. 20 feet, it's a little peachy if you wanted to park a car to the side of it, but you're not going to be parking a car to the side of it.
It's to also have it spacey and not have them stacked up on each other. You don't want it to be that kind of.
The other thing I look at is the one that's in front of us now. The
the one that we approved the preliminary plan on, it has 34-foot line. I mean, there's 20.
So isn't this is just the vehicle space, it's 34 for the vehicle space, 34 for the entire site?
This is the recreational vehicle space.
So it's just the driveway part?
Just recreational vehicle. Motorhome.
No, that's good, I just wanted to make sure, 'cause I didn't see that.
Those probably don't have any strip of grass or landscape between the next, possibly 20-footer, yeah. Usually they'll have some little bit of a strip of something to keep you away from the next guy's tip out over in your face. But
So Sean actually added that red line on the next thing. It says conditionally, and I actually inserted the word only 15% of the total on-site structures may be used as nightly rental. So this is what we need to.
I was writing down, like, park may contain a maximum of 15% of the total rental spaces as nightly rental structures.
That makes more sense.
Because there's spaces, and I actually want them to do it off their trailer spaces.
got a lot of
If
structures.
you have 100,
I do too.
if you have 100 trailer rental places, then you can have up to 15 cabins.
But that is also conditional. It's not, that's something that's negotiable. It's not going to be automatically given to them at 15%. I believe that's why it says conditional.
Conditional E.
Yes.
What's that?
I just wrote it down.
Wrote it down, so we can add that
Let me read
verbiage.
it back. Conditionally, parks may contain a maximum of 15% of the total rental spaces as nightly rental structures.
I like it.
I read the first time, I started with conditionally. He's just looking at me.
Yeah.
Park may contain a maximum of 15% of the total rental spaces as nightly rental structures.
So one thing you want to, on F though, when you're talking up there at the density, you're talking about that. I just want to make sure everybody's clear on this, is that the 16 units per the gross acreage. So that's everything. So when you start saying, okay, you're not just for the usable area where they're going to be putting these, it's total all everything. So it'll be for their clubhouse. They're calculating that density based on where they're going to have the clubhouse plus all the RV parking stalls and everything else. So I don't know if you want to do that or if you just want to use the area where they would be allowing, the designated area.
On their plan, and it was 20.39 acres. We have 106 units. We do the math, that's just barely 5 units per acre.
But are we better?
They have the clubhouse, all that. They're pretty much using the whole 20 acres.
You got to cut up
Is
a
it
lot of
better to
roads
word it
though.
this way though, or word it the other
That's the
way?
thing, you gotta have the roads
Every
in
100
between
feet,
them.
every less than every 100 feet, probably around every 70 feet, you've got to have a road going through that. And
We're gonna come to that right here in the next.
So that'll
one.
cut it up. That'll cut that. So maybe that 16 units. It's hard to vision a layout.
Yeah. I just wanted everybody to, I'm not trying to bring up another problem. It's just I want everybody to realize that what that is, that it's not of what they designated area for those cabins. It's not on that. It's for the overall.
It's in Q9 meeting in the business item, F16. We can look at it, right?
Been to Kanab lately and drove towards Lake Powell, the old Crazy Horse, whatever it is, RV park. They put in row after row after row of tiny homes, and it looks atrocious.
That's why in this nightly rental, I wanted that commercial thing struck. That's exactly what we'd be looking at, is it?
So do we
Yeah, the concept plan.
make the density line at all? If we're defining how big we
A
want the
cabin
site
gets
to
more money
be?
than an RV spot.
Words, I think we're talking about two different things.
Be interesting to see how you,
That's the old one. They don't have those for
Which I need to talk to you about this after. But But anyways, I mean, I took that way. If you just hit the next, the arrow button over to the right, the next plan shows a little bit more detail. Maybe just haven't.
I guess, are you concerned that they're gonna have more than
Go back up.
16 of those homes across the bottom in an acre? For the tiny homes?
I'm just worried about them having the RV park turn into a tiny home subdivision.
Tiny homes are on the other, this far side, aren't they?
Yeah, so if you can zoom in a little on the bottom, you can see the tiny home structures that they're gonna put
Yeah,
in.
there's like 20 of them there.
Yeah, and then you can see their structures. But so this is what it holds up, the 106 units. You just scroll up just a tiny bit so we can see that. So there's 106 units between the nightly rentals and the RV park spaces. And that's what the cutoffs. I found the one that was on the cutoffs.
So
But
is this one you're saying there's only 5 per acre?
there's only 5 per acre right there. Because there's
RV
28,
stalls.
there's 20 acres right there. And that-
Gross acre.
Yeah, 20 acres is the gross acreage. And then, so just for comparison, I mean, 16 is that's a high number, but that's only 5 per acre.
Of the gross acre.
Of the
Gross
gross acre.
acreage.
You got, that's the whole thing. You gotta remember the gross acre,
Yeah.
not the area that's designated. Because if you took the area of what they're designated, it's probably a lot higher than.
Yeah.
This is how wide their stalls are,
They're 34 feet.
30-foot feet.
Yeah.
You're trying to pull a 40-foot rig out of there, which you're gonna be doing this way.
This is their concept too.
Yeah, their other plan is better, which we're gonna get into the roads. The roads and stuff are defined in the next portion.
So my question on the density, at the bottom where they have their homes, or the tiny homes, would there be more than 16 per gross acre at the bottom?
I don't know.
That's why we just did that. You did it per unit, per
But I
spaces.
know, I think we need a mixed F if we're gonna,
22 of them?
F might be a problem.
2 tiny homes?
No, that's just how they design it.
714. Sorry, you have this.
I don't know how to do the numbers for that. What are all the are those parking along the edge there?
The one that I did had the half ones up in there, Darren, already, and it's 160 units.
How many RV spots do they
So
have
there's
there?
49,000 square feet, there's almost
So
50,000
total
square feet
including the.
in their designated
So it's
area.
only
So how many-
50,000?
How many they got? So 43,560 is an acre. So they're just over an acre
per strip.
for that strip that they've got.
So
That's,
that's-
and that's a guess, that's not
So
a
it's 1,
exact.
2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8.
It's over.
16.
How many RV spots?
16.
So you get, that's what 16.
But the row up above it is more.
Yeah, but they delimited that in their last one, and they're putting very flat, the one above it, doesn't have that up there.
5-foot length, man, that's a long.
So there's 23 across the bottom though. Are you just doing half of it? Did you just do a half of
There's
it?
23.
We're just talking spaces.
I can't,
We're talking RV spaces, not homes.
Okay, so how many RV spaces?
Well, that's why we made that sentence in the other one is,
There's 23,
for,
and they're just over an acre.
read your sentence again, because that's per spaces. It doesn't matter the acreage, so if they come up with,
So
Yeah,
they'd have to try, they'd have to.
so
change
we're really talking two different things. The density and the way that they construct and design this is 16 units per acre, right? Then when you're talking about the density for the nightly rentals, that's off the number of spaces that they can get out
I
of
just
that
didn't know
density.
if they would be having some kind of limitation between the two though.
No, I don't think so. That's why if we keep that verbiage, it refers these back to total space.
So 15% of the 106
But is it,
RV spaces, right? That's what we're talking.
I thought you said the 106 included the units, the nightly unit.
No, it does.
So it's not a total of that. It would be 15% of the total RV spaces.
For what, nightly rental units? Yeah, so that's what I'm saying.
So it's not 106.
We're talking
RVs,
about
but
two different things. So when you go build it and we're gonna design it, they can't put more than 16 units per acre, right? So when they're designing this, doesn't matter what it is. It doesn't matter if it's a nightly rental, a trailer spot, or whatever. They can't have more than 16 units per acre. So if you only had 1 acre that you're gonna do an RV park on, you can only put 16 units of combined uses, right?
And you're good. I
And
just
then-
haven't looked at an acre to think of what that's gonna look like with 8 trailers or 8 homes
That's,
on it.
that strip right there, the second strip up of the RV, that's 1 acre.
That's
That's what
straight line.
Aaron was just telling you.
Just That third one up?
This one right here is 1 acre. Right? So then if you back up, then the nightly rentals can only, it's a completely separate thing. Inside of all the units, the nightly rental can only be 15% of the total spaces.
Of the total spaces.
The RV spaces.
RV
Because
spaces.
you can't get into total acreage because then
'Cause
they'll
then you
just
can-
delete and add more tiny
You
homes.
bet.
You gotta stop. I mean, this is, I mean, it's nice, it's crowded, but you gotta stop the control of that compared to wiping out spaces.
Yeah,
Yeah.
don't. It's not
So I have
just
that written down for
completely-
H1. I'll read that in when we do that.
So H1 will be in that. We're not gonna make a motion. We're gonna give this to make a draft for the next meeting. So, but we do need to keep that. Okay, so the minimum yard clearances, just like you were talking on the front, you have to have 25 feet, side yards, 10.
Is that on each side of your,
The
Property.
whole outside of the property. For the subdivision itself,
then number 4 is between units then? Oh, they
And
Number
need to-
4 is space between RVs.
between 10 foot between units.
Print this off.
So is a unit being described as the space for the trailer or?
Yes. Or, well, no, the unit is the trailer itself.
So between two trailers being parked, there's,
Between units. So if two people are parking, they need 10-foot clearance, which is pretty common.
unless you go to Snow Canyon, oh my gosh. Don't ever count there.
Number 5 is a 6'4" high solid fence shall be erected along all sides of the rear property lines when the recreational vehicle park is located adjacent to any use except another RV park, right? I like that,
Solid fence.
Why would there be an exception if there's an RV?
because they're just blend together. You wouldn't know what the difference between one or
Just
two.
ownership?
Solid fence could be like a no see-through fence.
Yeah.
Solid.
Solid.
As long as it's solid, visibility blocking. You know.
So utilities, each recreational vehicle park shall have connections available for water, sewer, electricity. All utility connections shall be located underground. All recreational vehicle parks shall be connected to a public sewer system for all sewer connections or dump stations. Service buildings, all recreational service buildings. Or recreational vehicle parks shall contain a service building containing all sanitary facilities required by the Utah State Department of Oil Code and recreational vehicle, camp or trailer, port sanitation regulations, and shall provide a dump station for dependent recreational vehicles.
What does that mean?
So, it's,
Dependent?
like if they can hold their own sewer and then they can pull up and dump it later. Outdoor living space, looks like we need about 300 square foot of that. I'm okay with that. Additions and awnings, I really like this. All structures are regulated by the International Building Code in effect at the time of the construction. No additional or enclosure shall exceed 425 square feet of the total floor area. Maximum floor outside of the dwelling unit within an RV park shall not exceed 825 square feet of the total floor. So this was a really big thing, is the International Building Code. The way that this RV park came through is there was no, if these are built off-site, who does the inspection on them and how do they meet city code?
They're not the little,
Yeah, so this will help us with that problem. Minimum separation, in no case shall RV or addition to be closer to an adjacent RV. I should say less than, right? 10 feet.
what's the
more,
difference
plus or
between
five.
saying no addition or enclosure shall exceed the 425 versus the maximum allowed dwelling unit is 825?
So it's saying you can't have a tiny home that's under 425 square feet.
And not more than
Not more
825?
than 825 because your RV park, your space won't allow more than 825 anyway.
How small can it, how big the tiny home gotta be?
It has to be in between 425 and 825 square feet.
25 is the smallest, huh?
Yeah.
Wow.
So
Let's
what's,
put the bigger ones in, because some of them tiny homes are so small.
yeah, 400 square feet, it's smaller than that, aren't they? Some of them are
Yeah,
200.
they're 10 by 12s,
Yeah.
just little cabin things, just a bunkhouse.
What is the interior property line?
Where are you looking?
And
I'm not sure. No closer than a 5 foot to an interior property line. Darren, do you have any?
I don't know if the drawing on the interior property line.
what is an
Are
interior
they
property?
saying, are they saying like a property sight line? Like, like a lot, a space line instead of a, yeah, I'm guessing that's what it is.
We'd probably want to define that somehow in a definition or in that actual letter N.
So we could just say, nor closer than 5 feet to an adjacent, sight line.
Yeah, there you go. I think that would make sense.
Is are you talking, is that like between the tiny homes? Up to the street? Like what is the
We're
interior?
talking about RP spaces.
The lines in between campground, in between your spot.
So in between you, if you pull in there for the night, you're going to rent between this line and this line, and you shouldn't, put it in the minimum separation. Minimum separation.
So I think, this is what, I think we can strike O because we've already done that in,
I would agree.
yeah, we can, because it's already covered in the one with the verbiage you've got up there,
I
right?
think you're just gonna move O1 up to O. Because you still are gonna have some of the pieces now from the nightly rent one here.
So this-
So O is referring to density again. It's yeah.
You know what we might ought to do,
Why are we
Ron,
taking O out?
because it's over here and conditionally, we're putting that over here.
It's under
We-
H1.
We need to put H,
H1.
we need to put conditionally an I. If we go back to that,
That's only conditioned in nightly structures.
Oh, yeah.
This is talking, 24-hour continuous on-site management.
no, we're just, so if we strike just that verbiage, because we already have the verbiage in conditionally over here. So this verbiage right here is going to move to here.
Duplicated.
We should
Same verbiage
probably,
here.
what's that?
You're not
So
taking
we
out
should
this-
probably put conditionally as, because permitted is H and then conditionally would be I. So we just need to move the
To allow tents.
Did you say it, Darren?
Yeah, I would agree. Correct. Now, if they, as Gary was talking about there, if they allow a tent area, that's going to be a area that they're going to. It's overnight camping. It's just like away, and they can only fit so many tents there. I don't know.
An RV or campground park. I've never been in an RV.
Go up to Virgin. Yep. Yep.
KOAs do.
Too windy and hot up there at camp.
I don't think they want to pay to service electric and all the utilities to every spot.
Let's keep moving on with that.
So on O, you're just gonna title it RV part nightly rental requirement.
So that's the thing too, when I got in, is the rest of this code is our nightly rental.
It is. It just
And
rolls back in
It
there.
is like almost, and I don't know if Sean wrote this, but this is like, actually, he didn't write this. This is where our code came from.
I think this was the St. George one.
It
wasn't
is a St. George
Yeah.
one, but this is almost our exact nightly rental code, which I was shocked. So
This is our rental code. You read it page word for word. It's ours. It's just been transposed.
into there,
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's almost word for word.
do we need to put this in here? Do we need to have a nightly rental code or so? How are we gonna govern the nightly rentals inside of there? Because what we're saying is that they're,
So I think we need to keep them separate because the other
When they
one,
see that and figure out they've got to apply for a nightly rental on each one of those,
I don't
Right.
think
you're going to have a heart attack. If you're gonna fight.
Yeah, I think,
Just for the total number,
I agree.
but not the,
Then they're applying to have their X amount of units.
for a nightly rent or for an RV park, you're gonna have a conditional use? Yeah, okay. All right, correct. Yeah, I misunderstood what you're saying. Oh. Yeah,
unless does a motel need a conditional use?
no. Yeah, exactly.
Don't apply for anything.
That's section.
Because
The only thing we need to have in here, isn't the only thing we need to have in here is maybe occupancy limit overall?
I think,
Anything out of the nightly rental.
I think they're gonna have to govern their own occupancy.
I think the occupancy levels probably will be governed by the fire department, the state fire marshal. All.
So like, this is where we were talking about like the 14 days or 30 days or whatever.
This could be pretty important to govern the number of days they stay there, because it'll turn into a month rental.
Not a trailer park.
Yeah.
So there, I know they argued, some people had asked or said last month that, well, you have your snowbirds that come down for a few months and things like that. And while I appreciate that some people do that, what do we want in our city?
Well, hold on one second. Before we move to this other topic, do we just want to scratch all of that out of there?
I think the
So
only
from
thing,
O on, do we want to just remove that? Because
Well, I guess
the whole point of having the
Two separate.
on-site manager at all times, right?
Right.
We're allowing it, the same as a motel. And actually, they can consider these a motel because of the way our code reads, so they can be individual structures.
so I think we should just remove everything that's in O and make O that conditional statement about the 15%.
Okay? Does everybody else agree? We can just strike everything out of that?
Yeah.
So then we can move, so then let's just go to the last page. It'll be occupancy time limits, right? So let's word this how we need.
My only other thought about do we want to have something in here about parking for the nightly rentals?
Parking.
Like the RV spot, the RV,
They have parking in the plan.
They're
I
gonna,
know that's in their plan, but I don't really think there's anything here. We have parking for the RV spots, but you didn't mention any parking
well,
for the.
that is
nightly
part of their RV spot, so they'll still have to meet the requirements for these as,
For any spot.
yeah,
Looks like they had a parking stall and a half for every unit. Every unit looks like to me, honestly.
so if we just jump to the last page of that, then we can just, because that's struck out of here, so what we need to do is just,
Put it back in.
if we want to keep the verbiage how that is, then let's keep that verbiage.
Some of them
I
people
like
want
that.
to leave their motorhome there for 6 months.
And some parks do that. My
Well,
dad's done
don't they
that
have a
too.
separate parking for that? They move them out of the overnight and put them in a storage? Some of them do, but
Some of them don't want to lose their spot. They just flat won't leave. They rent it by the month.
My dad rented 6
You
months
could
down
sit
in
there.
Arizona.
That's crazy.
But I agree, there's RV parks that do that, but those are for RV parks that want to do that. With where it's at and what our city has, honestly, I would like to be able to utilize our RV parks and things too, but if we don't put limitations, people are gonna come down and book them for ever, and you'll never get to even go stay by the lake and enjoy it.
Welcome to tourism.
But so 14 days is pretty typical for state, is what state and federal
it's
have.
for
for all-
BLM land, but
Yeah.
you're not paying for it. You're just.
You know, it'd be nice to have a camping spot at
They're
Co-op once
giving
in a while.
everybody a fair chance, but if someone's paying for that spot, it's kind of a different number for me.
I don't know, that's how it is for state reservations as well.
It
Forest
is.
Service.
I think it's actually a 10-day limit, actually. I'd have to go look.
10 days Forest Service.
Yeah. So we wanted people to come recreate, not come live.
Come live. Well, and I'd like to be able to rent a spot once in a while, but they're booked out 2 and 3 years in advance now. You can't rent nothing anywhere. You can't go to co-op fishing unless you've got an advanced camp spot 3 years from now. So they're all
Well, it is-
taken
so
up,
it
and
is
that's
a
a bad
private-
thing
it
if
is
they
a
stay there
private-
forever.
These are private, right? These aren't funded by the state.
Maybe rotation is not a bad idea to let somebody else get in there.
I think I would be okay saying that they could stay longer per year, but I still want them leaving every couple of weeks. And I might consider 30 days, but I would never want it longer than 30. that thing's just gonna fill up. Look at the new RV parks in Harrison, they're full. So I want this to be a recreation spot and not a trailer park. I don't know, that's my personal opinion.
How do we enforce it? Hard to say. One trailer looks
So,
the same
do we have
as
a-
registration numbers.
Do we have a code, do we even have an enforcement officer?
Darren volunteered. That's a
We-
that would be a beast to try to even.
That would be almost impossible to enforce.
Pretty much what you're gonna live with. I don't think you can.
I guess you could put a sign.
We run that stuff out, then there's no penalties, so I think we need to make sure we still some penalties, because if they're not gonna abide by some of these rules, we should have that. In park,
Abide by which rules?
anything in here. Or like if we put a nightly rental, like, yeah.
Well,
The nightly rental code does not applicable, or they're not applicable then because they can fall under the motel.
you've got two different codes here that you got to put together. You're trying to.
Into it, and I think so as far as enforcement of that, that's why we're doing the RV code, not a nightly rental code.
Right.
We're allowing them to control them nightly because they are on-site managers.
And this is a commercial application. This is not a. It's just.
How long the occupants can stay, any limit, whatever you decide on. And you're talking about enforcement, there needs to be some kind of penalty. And they're letting people just stay for 6 months, what's the point? Or
Depends on if we put the
We're
code
working on
Yeah, I would agree. That's going to be super, like Wayne saying, how are we, it is really going to be a hard one to penalize and assign fees to and penalties. Just because, how do you tell, say that somebody doesn't pull out of one spot, goes over to the next spot, sets up again?
I can't imagine a Tocqueville city
Yeah, but
do that thing every other day.
it's private property. So that's,
Not by the city.
no, yeah. That would be a lot of legal work, a lot of cost.
you'd have to catch them, basically.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. They would have to have somebody driving through the recording. You couldn't just go say. I almost think we're barking up the wrong tree on this one. So you just want to scratch that?
So I've seen that, and I actually went.
We need to
I-
control what they have, what their densities are, what their tiny homes are, and this and that, but I don't think you control the inner workings of how they run their business.
Correct.
I actually found that.
It's
in
too much of an animal.
Every RV ordinance that I read across multiple states has them. I
Does
went
it?
to the different states and different places. So whether we enforce it or have issues with that, I still think we should have something in there and respectfully ask our businesses to.
I mean, Lavercan had this trouble years ago with 2 RV parks that turned into villages. That's in today's reality. That's,
So, I mean,
every
we-
RV park you look at is pretty darn nice. It's got turnaround, it's got long term, it's got cabins, and it's 24-hour because those owners don't want to get a bad rep.
I actually
So they
disagree.
have to
I've had
keep it
family
up.
trying to come down to visit me and can't get them. If we don't put something in here, so I think something should be here, whether we go out and enforce it immediately or watch it all the time. But if it became a problem where people are just living there year round, then we could easily go out and be like, this wasn't what we wanted for our location, and now we're gonna drive around and record it and file a complaint or whatever we have to do. So no, I don't think it's something, but if you have nothing in there to even follow up on, then you have no way to go and say we don't like this.
I think we need to snoop around and figure out what they're doing.
But I'm just saying, if we
What
don't put
RV parks
something,
are doing.
there's no way for
Just
us
be,
to complain
you
about
know,
it.
how they police their problems and try to figure it out. I mean, we can grab something off the shelf that
What I could do is I could go over to Hurricane as well and talk with the director over there. Because they've had 4 new RV parks come in recently, and find out what their rule is there, and then get back to you. Yeah.
Well, I think it's more of what they're doing. If they do have that in their code, how are they enforcing it? You know, they actually have a police force there. So,
Something we shouldn't be doing.
yeah.
We got a little bit of time. I'd like to see this in a rough draft form for next week or next meeting. I mean,
I'm like, how fast are they pushing on this?
3 months, 4 months, maybe, depends.
They'll start. I think they've got a little bit of stuff because they've got to create wiping of SR 17 out there. We got acceleration lanes and turn pocket lanes and things. But you have given. So, yeah, well, so the way the preliminary site plan was that you give them approval conditioned upon this being written, and then they would have to apply to this. So, as far as for the most part, most everything we have in this is they're already falling in line with for their site plan. So it's just these little inner working things that we're going to figure out here in the next month. I would like to try to get something put on the book in the next 2 months.
For us to have a draft in.
Yep.
Council the next month. Then
We
they
have
would
to have
give,
a good draft at the end of next week.
it would give them time. I think we have a fairly good draft, actually.
Yeah, I think you're just
We take this and we put the verbiage in on conditionally and re-letter them. And we strike everything from O on. At least we have a draft and then we can build on that for eternity, right? At least.
Yep.
On the flip side, you're gonna have your own RV park you're gonna try to manage. And you're gonna wanna manage it different
with their next year.
14-day max thing in there.
There has to be an upkeep.
So people can enjoy our reservoir,
That's
and
what
this
she's saying.
people up here in this RV park, I don't know if they can comply to the same rules that we want out there.
Yeah.
So how do you gotta fit it in? Well, our plans are plus their plans.
That'll be a city, that's gonna be a city RV park, so we're gonna have to.
We're gonna have our own
So the other
rules.
thing too about it is that,
Yeah.
so this is where I was coming a minute ago, is that one of the RV parks in Hurricane, it has their own bylaws that says you can't have a trailer older than this. And we're not gonna let you stay here longer than this, and like some of these trailer parks, because if you want a trailer park where you're attracting people all the time, they're not gonna let that trash stay anymore, because it's a different era.
I think we should write something in there, and then they can have, stricter rules, but no, I don't know if they could say that. They can always make things more strict, but they just can't go wrong.
Well, what we do is staff what you guys are talking about, and then just we can make a draft for next month. If you wanted to go to a full-on
What if we had
public hearing, we could.
like something like, no occupant shall remain in the same place.
So it's autumn, Daisy. Yeah.
Right?
Well, if you want to leave it to the way it is right there, that's all. Do that or not.
I'm gonna ask.
If you want to wait, we can.
See what we come up with.
Okay.
So people want the long terms. It's the same thing as renters. It's guaranteed.
I don't want long terms at the
Well,
reservoir.
the other thing that's happening quite often now is a lot of the younger couples are buying travel trailers and living in
them.
Vermont. That's their only source of living, which I would hate, like one of my family members lives in a trailer park and that trailer's nice as can be,
They do.
but why would you want to move it all the time?
Yeah.
Right, but but we're not, are we trying to provide affordable housing or recreation?
I'm just not
Yeah.
talking point. I don't really.
We want to recreate an RV. The true definition of an RV park is recreation, not affordable.
We all know the traffic is what I think we need to put this in here. If we don't enforce it, because we don't have the ability or people to do it, then fine. But if it became something where they're just letting people stay and the residents are frustrated with it, then we have a place that we can act.
Yeah.
But I don't think it should be
Something to
6
cover
months.
our butt in case we do.
You're not gonna be able to enforce anything inside of an RV park.
I don't think it should be 14 days, though. I think we need to make it.
I would be fine to do it to 30 and 60, but I still don't want it to be 6 months.
So where we go? We just start researching it, we get some other people's,
Well, I think what we should do is just try to get at least an idea so that we can get a good draft. Because we've got the rest of the draft, which I can give with Daisy. Got enough notes here to get it draft form. If we just can figure out one here, and then in the meantime, we can do the things and do the research. Then when we have a public hearing, then we can make a motion the same way we made it on our nightly rental tonight, where we change the verbiage in our motion and send it on.
Well, what about a 90-day? You know, because that's kind of a
60 and 90.
between 30 and 6 months. That gives them 3 months. A lot of snowbirds come for 3 months.
let's just find it out, we'll just find it out. We'll just, I'll
I
research
mean, we
it.
can
I'll
recommend
figure it
whatever we
out.
want.
I'll go
Well,
around
he just
and-
wants to put something down.
I just know if the RV park's full for 3 months of the year, then we don't.
You're thinking of,
people just
are
don't
you thinking of
take it over,
adopting
we don't
this just to
use it.
cover yourself at the moment?
So,
We're gonna work on it before we even think about adopting it.
Yeah.
We've got a couple
Yeah.
months.
Yeah.
And then
Just
we'll
want
get,
that.
and if we got a panic, we'll adopt it, and then we'll just work on it.
Amend it?
Yeah.
That's my thing, is I'd rather amend it.
I'll get
Anytime.
that, I'll get that information. for you.
What if we do, let's say, what if we put a time limit of 90 days total for a calendar year? And 60 consecutive days, or that's quite a while, 60
I
consecutive.
think 30. I think
30?
90 and 30. And they can come back, like if they're recreating, they can go down the street, do different one and come back, like it's not safe. I just,
Yeah.
well, you have to make reservations, right? So, but I mean, like, seriously, my parents have come down, and I can't tell you how many times they're like ending up in like overflow gravel pits, because people just, everything, it was the one in St. George, but it's just full of everybody who's living there.
So
Could you-
for draft purposes, let's just put the 90-30 in there, and if we need to redraft it, like, does everybody feel comfortable that we can have a public hearing on it next month? And then if we need to change the verbiage, we can change it in that motion,
Yeah.
just like we did there.
Yeah.
You okay with that, Wayne?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think that's good.
So you're gonna make O be that conditional for the 15% part, and strike everything else out of the rental, right?
Actually,
And there might be a, there
we're
might
gonna
be a
move,
number too.
we're gonna move I to conditionally. and we'll move them
Non-reservable
down.
spots. They
Yeah.
can't be reserved, that's first come,
Isn't it
first
O?
served.
Yeah.
Are we taking out everything from
We're
O?
Put it
putting,
out there.
the conditional is gonna be
Well,
up
I
here,
know
we're
that
gonna
you
move
can
I
have
out.
over in my pink pendant because we just went and talked over.
And then we're gonna strike everything from, O is gonna turn into time limits.
So you're gonna make the conditional one I,
On one side,
Yeah.
so H and then I.
Yeah, in fact, if you can write that verbiage on the back of this sheet,
first come first served.
You try to reserve something, do they have them all booked up?
Yeah.
It's crazy.
Yep.
They're booked up for years.
I know. Yeah, we got Wednesday and Thursday night, and then we probably are gonna have to move to the overflow.
Conditional means
Go
we
to
have
the
to
go
get a permit for all of it.
Self-contained.
there's, yeah, we can put
Is that a
limits
conditional,
on
Norm?
them.
Is that a
yeah.
conditional
We
mean?
have a new motorhome, that's kind of like our maiden voyage, and we don't really wanna pull off the road too much, you know?
You don't know how well it goes in the sand, is what
Well,
you're
I
saying.
don't, we're not gonna take it
Yeah.
this
It
year.
means when
I've had mine
we're
stuck.
reviewing this
God.
ordinance, that we can say, well, I don't like how tight they are, so conditionally, I'm gonna only say you can have 10% of the total. It gives us and city council some leeway to
Based on how they present it.
Yeah. And I will fulfill my mission. I'll get that information for you.
I know you will.
I'll go to every RV park in the country here. Because I got nothing to do sometimes.
Have they,
And I'll get paid for it.
Vacation, free vacation. So O is gonna be time, limits, actually, O is gonna move up to here.
permanent structures, rental permanent
What
structure?
did you write? I can't
I
remember.
put structures. I have nightly rental structures. I put nightly rental permanent structures. Do they have to be on a
They're
foundation?
not permanent.
I thought you said they can't do the tiny home.
No, they can do tiny homes too. They're not permanent.
I thought they had to be on a foundation.
No.
We changed it back. I was in one meeting a couple months ago. I thought we said they couldn't come in and just drop them in. You have to be permanent structure.
We had that, but we can't enforce permanent. Yeah,
I'd say we get trained up.
let's get trained up. As soon as she gets that verbiage, then there's the verbiage.
I didn't realize that got squished when we were talking about that.
These annoying alternates are making your meeting long.
I like, well,
Maybe we're just too gung ho, right?
Commissioner Thompson just
We'll
put in
wear
so
out
much
before too
information today.
We'll wear out.
Okay, that concludes discussion items. We'll go back to F8 for the training.
Are we still broadcasting on YouTube still? Okay.
We are.
They just don't have video. So just a really quick introduction. If I could stop. Is David Church from the Utah Leagues of Cities and Towns. He's retired now, but when the Open Public Meetings Act came out, and I can't remember how many years ago it was, about 10 or 15 years ago, that he brought out a series of these, and it's about 26 minutes. So this is a setting in a seminar that he was doing. So they'll ask questions of him and think about this, but just listen. And then after we're done, after it's done, we could ask questions. I could probably answer some things, but I think he will answer a lot of your questions as we listen. So I don't know if we need to turn the lights down a little bit off that back side there. And we need to.
Make that law work, what they have said is that every meeting of the council or the planning commission must be an open and public meeting. So they define meeting for you, and that's the question that's asked here by this gentleman. 3 council members, can they meet? If a quorum is convened, it is a meeting. And you have to be in compliance with the Open Public Meetings Act. Mayor and 2 is not a meeting in the 6-member council form. A mayor is a meeting. You have to. If you get a quorum together, it is a meeting. The only exceptions to that are chance encounter. To comply with the Open Public Meetings Act. Requires is 2 things. Notice to the public about the date, time, place, and subject matter of the meeting, and that the doors have to be open for the public to come in and watch you. Oh, I thought that was 9 for sure. The notice has to be of 2 forms. First, councils who hold regular meetings, and by the way, you're required to meet at least once a month, have to establish a regular meeting schedule and post that at the place of the meetings and post it on the state public notice website that the state provides and send a copy of that to your local news media. The second form is that for each individual meeting, you will establish an agenda at least 24 hours before the meeting. Post that at the place of the meeting, post it on the state public notice meeting website, and send a copy of that to your news media. That's the minimum. You can do more than that. You're encouraged to put it on your own website. You can put it all over town. You could pay to advertise it if you want, but you don't have to pay anybody to advertise it. This is just for your regular meetings.
That's the minimum notice. The agenda is supposed to set out for the public to know what you're planning to discuss at that meeting. 24 hours, easy to comply with. Your regular meetings and special meetings. The mayor could call a special meeting whenever he wanted to, or any two council members could call a special meeting. If you call a special meeting, a call of the meeting, a notice of the meeting has to be given to all the council members since it's not a regular meeting, and the same kind of public notice be given. Posted on the place of the meeting, public notice website, agenda at least 24 hours in advance. There are no exceptions except for emergency meetings. An emergency means the flood is coming, the fire is burning. It does not mean we forgot to do the notice. That's not an emergency, that's a mistake. It doesn't mean it was inconvenient for us to meet on the day we called it, but we can do it the next day. That's an inconvenience, it's not an emergency. Okay, once you're in that open public meeting, you've done the notice, then what the open public meetings law says is this. We're going to require you to keep a record of that. That record will be in two forms. You're going to have the meeting recorded, and you're going to have written minutes. The written minutes will be the official record of that meeting, and the recording will be a public document that's available to the public that they can listen to at no cost anytime they want. And you're going to be required to have a minimum amount of stuff in those official minutes. And that minimum amount of stuff is not a transcription of what went on in the meeting, but the substance of what went on. And the actual vote by name of any members of that committee on how they vote on that. And then the law says that if it's not on the agenda for that meeting, you cannot take any final action on the matter. Now, if it comes up and the mayor doesn't object to it being discussed, or the chair of the meeting doesn't object, you can discuss something that might come from the public that wasn't on the agenda, but you can't take a vote on it. You can't take any final action. You have to put it on an agenda so the public knows. So the Open and Public Meetings Act is very straightforward, very easy to comply with. I represent one of my clients. I represent, for example, Alpine City. Alpine City meets on the second and fourth Tuesdays of every month. In January, that recorder will send out a new notice to the Provo Daily Herald, which is the newspaper that she likes to send it to in there in Utah County. Just the thing saying our meetings are going to be on the second and fourth Tuesday of every month, and they're going to start at 7 o'clock, and they're going to be held at 20 North Main Street, Alpine, Utah, in the City Hall. That complies with the annual notice thing. And then before each meeting, she is going to post on the state public notice website an agenda for that meeting, at least 24 hours before, and she's going to put on that agenda the items that the mayor or council has asked her to be put on. And the idea is that the residents of Alpine are smart enough to know, oh, it's the second Tuesday in January. There's a city council meeting. I think I will get on my internet and go to Utah Public Notice website and click on Alpine City and see what they're going to talk about and decide if I want to go. Or if you're over 55, they say, oh, I think I'll walk down to the city hall and check on the door and see if I want to go to that meeting tonight. Because if you were old enough to think of doing that before we go on the internet. And then they look and say, oh, look, they're going to talk about the big issue in Alpine, by the way, is urban deer population. Half the town wants to slaughter them like chickens at the Smith meat factory. The other half wants to feed them. And you get, and Alpine's got a lot of rich people. You get rich people who are mad that their tulip trees being eaten in a fight with rich people who think that Bambi ought to be allowed to come up to the back steps for their granddaughter to give apples to. And that's a mean fight. And they put everything out. But anyway, that's going to be on the agenda January 12th, City, Utah. There'll be 500 people there arguing with each other. And they know it. But they would never put that on to make a decision, discuss that or make a decision without it being on the agenda. Even though if no one shows up, that Alpine City Council and staff will come up with a reasonable solution to that problem in about 20 minutes. But that meeting on January 12th is going to take 4 hours on that one topic. I know that because I've already sat through 3 of them. That's what the Open and Public Meetings Act requires, and that's what it does. It gets public involvement. It keeps council members from making easy decisions in quiet places where they're not being bothered. It makes them make tough decisions in public in front of people who care a lot about it. Any questions thus far about the Open Public? Yes. Okay, that's a good question. A public meeting is different from a public hearing. The Open and Public Meetings Act requires all your meetings to be public meetings, not public hearings. There are some things that require public hearings. That's not required under the Open and Public Meetings Act. Those will be things required under other areas of the law. So, for example, you're required to have a public hearing before you amend or adopt a zoning ordinance. At least one, either at the Planning Commission or the City Council. City Council is required to have a public hearing to adopt the budget of the tax rate. You're required to have a public hearing in front of the City Council when you adopt an ordinance setting your own salary. Those are required public hearings. The difference between a public hearing and a public meeting is this. At a public meeting, the public's right to participate is established by council and the mayor, and it could be the public has no right to speak, or it could be something in between. Public hearing, the law says the public has a right to speak on it, or you can't do that. The law requires all of you on planning commissions or city councils to have adopted rules of procedure, like Robert's Rules of Order or something. Those rules of procedure should lay out the level and how you control public input in your meeting. So, for example, most cities that I attend city council meetings, and I also go to every North Salt Lake City Council meeting, first and third Tuesday. By the way, I've been to a city council meeting every Tuesday night since 1980. I'm tired of it.
Sounds like Afton.
Now I go to one every other Wednesday too, along with it. But in North Salt Lake, third item on their agenda after they have their little opening on that is an item, public comment. The mayor there says it's in their rules, invite any member of the public to come up to speak for as long as 2 minutes on any item that's not on the agenda. And then we do that. And then when that's done, the public is not invited to speak on any subject matter on the agenda unless it's a public hearing or unless the mayor or council requests that a member of the public give some input. They run it very formally. Now, I also go to the Vineyard Town Council meeting every other Wednesday night. That thing's run like, they think they have rules, but the members of the Vineyard Town public who show up, they think that the fact that time to show up entitles him to speak on every issue that comes up before everything, and that mayor who chairs it feels very happy doing it. The council doesn't object. So they have that comment period at the start of the meeting too, but during the meeting, people interrupt all the time and comment and stand up and add their own stuff just like they're on the council. And that's all right too. It doesn't make it a public hearing, still a public meeting, but it's completely up to you on how you want to do it. I favor formality. I think the public respects it more. I favor a strong chair. The stronger the chair, the better. Council members, adopt rules of procedure and make your chair do it. The more formal we run our meetings, the more like church and the less like kindergarten, the more the public will treat us with the reverence that we give the minister and less like the rudeness that the little kids give the teachers. Years ago, I used to represent Moab City. I represented Moab City. I drove down from Salt Lake once a month or something because the mayor hated the council and the council hated the mayor. They couldn't agree on a local attorney, and they agreed that I'd do it until they could agree. So I'd drive down, and the first meeting I went down there, I knew they hated each other. Go to the council meeting, and the mayor's there, and he's chairing it, and everybody's polite. And the mayor was a strong chair, and no member of the public spoke unless recognized by the chair. And council members would say, and no staff member interrupted, unless recognized by the chair. And they treated each other with respect. And it was a wonderful meeting. And I learned a lot from that. Formality took the heat out of the room. The public treated them like respected elected officials. They treated each other with respect, and the meetings went quickly. Now, I've been to meetings where everybody likes each other and they do it, and they can't get something that takes 10 minutes done in 2 hours because they let everybody talk and they let everybody go on. The chair doesn't exert his or her authority over the meeting. Okay, so adopt rules of procedure. Now, every meeting is an open and public meeting. Some portions of the open public meeting can be closed for certain reasons, and that's what we call executive sessions or closed meetings. The reasons for you that allow you to close a meeting are laid out by the state legislature. They are to be strictly interpreted. They can't be expanded. This is the way to think about it. Every meeting starts as an open public meeting. If you get to an item on the agenda that meets the definition of one of these things in state law, you have the right to close that portion of the meeting if you hold a vote to close it, the minutes reflect the purpose for which you're closing it, and instead of a simple majority voting to close it, it takes a 2/3 vote to close it. So, 5-member council take 4 of you to vote yes to close it. 6-member take 4 council members to vote yes to close the meeting. These are the reasons that you can close the meeting, and these reasons only. You can close it to discuss the character, professional competence, or physical or mental health of an individual. Not to talk about personnel policies, not to talk about personnel issues, to talk about a person. You can close it to hold a strategy session on collective bargaining. None of you guys in this room collectively bargain, by the way. I know who bargains to the state, and it's none of you guys. Maybe you do.
You said some interesting things.
You can hold a meeting and talk about strategy on pending or reasonably imminent litigation. I've been to Springdale and talked about litigation. I've been to Beaver and talked about litigation. You meet with your lawyers on imminent or pending. It doesn't mean that you can close the meeting every time someone threatens to sue you. You at least got to know the name of their attorney and what the issue is and what court you're going to be in. You can close the meeting to talk about the strategy on the purchase or sale of property if you need to do that to make sure you get the best price. You can't close it and talk about should we buy. That's the public policy stuff. Or should we sell? That's public policy. Once you make that policy decision, you put the meeting to talk about, all right, let's offer $200,000, but we're willing to go to $400,000. That kind of stuff. You can close the meeting to talk about the deployment of security devices. Here's the code, the key to the code pad on the door. Here's the safe. Yes. Good question. Closed meetings are recorded, except for talking about deployment of security devices or if you're talking about a person. The theory on that is no one wants a recording around that has the key to the code-pad, the safe on it. A recording device, frankly, kind of stifles discussion when you're talking about a person, because everyone's afraid that someone's going to eventually listen to that recording. Only those two things. And then if the chair of the meeting signs an affidavit that says, we swear the only thing we talked about was the character competency of an individual, you don't have to report. But the recorded closed meeting is not a public document. It's a protected document. It is not available to the public. It's available to a judge to review if someone challenges you on whether it's recorded or not. Yes. Can you name them? Are they living people? What? Could be an employee. Could be another council member. It could be a neighbor in another town. If you are the character, the health, the competence of an individual, and you feel, and the council feels like that's necessary for the public business, you can do that in a closed meeting. And the reasons ought to be obvious to us all. First, you want a frank discussion if it's absolute need, and there are private information there that you should not have. And you don't want to disseminate private information about people because you might be violating some of their rights. So let's give examples. Let's say an employee gets sick, serious cancer, hasn't told anybody, tells the manager, oh, I've got this problem. I'm going to need a lot of time off. I'm going to need you to work with me on it. Please don't share this in the community. I haven't shared it with everybody. Manager's going to want to go in and tell the council, we got a problem. We might have to up staff. We got a problem here. You vote to close the meeting. You go in that meeting. You say, hey, I just wanted to tell you that, so-and-so's got a serious health issue. He's going to have to take a lot of time off. And might affect our health insurance rates. And I don't know if he's got enough sick leave and how are we going to help him? That kind of thing. Now, that's appropriate to close it. Where it's not appropriate to close it is, should we give the employees a raise? All the employees. Where you're not talking about an individual. That's a public policy. Okay, the other reasons you can close it. Investigate criminal conduct. And then there are some others that don't apply to you. So basically you have 5 reasons, depending on your county. To talk about a person, to talk about criminal investigation, when you're dealing with buying and selling property, when you're talking with your lawyer about litigation, or when you're handing out the code to the front door. Deployment of security devices. Yes. Well, let me just say, recuse yourself. Let me just say, the question comes up all the time, who can be in a closed meeting? The answer is members of the council and whoever the council thinks is necessary to carry out the purpose of the closed meeting. You can invite in the appraiser. You can invite in the lawyer. You can invite in the psychologist. Now, the hard part is, what if a council wants to meet to talk about another council member? Can we kick them out of the meeting? My answer, I got that asked just the other day. My answer to that is, and ask them to leave. And if they refuse, there's no good way to kick them out. Just don't hold the meeting. We'll find another way to talk about it. Because they are elected to be on the council. What the voters gave them was the right to sit on the council. All right. Very important. Meeting, you learn something. It's closed for a purpose. You do not have the right to violate the closed meeting purposes on your own. It takes a vote to make that public. The minutes of a closed meeting, the tape of a closed meeting, the information in a closed meeting is what's called the GRAMA, the Government Records Access and Management Act. On your own as a council person, you don't have the right to share that. Let me just tell you, that comes up all the time. I heard of a thing the other day. that I won't share exactly, but here is an example. Let's say you're in a meeting and we're talking about the strategy on buying a piece of property. And you're sitting there and the appraiser says, or the mayor says, all right, we've got as much as $400,000 to buy this piece of property. And you've agreed that what you're going to do is start at $200,000, but you might go up to $400,000. And you're sitting there thinking, I know the guy that owns this property. They offer him $200,000, he might take it. It sure seems unfair that he doesn't know that we'll go to $400,000. And maybe it's your friend, maybe it's your neighbor. And you go out of that closed meeting and you whisper in their ear and say, by the way, when they offer you $200,000, I suggest to come back to something close to $400,000. If you do that, you violated the provisions of the Closed Meeting Act, and you may have acted unethically, for sure, and may have committed a crime. If you think the information that was in a closed meeting should be made public, the way it's made public is by a vote of the same body that closed it, the council. By the way, planning commissioners, I cannot think of a reason for you ever to call a closed meeting unless you're meeting with your lawyer to talk about how to get out of the mess that you made on some other previous decision. Zoning decisions, we don't close meetings when they're hard. General plans, we don't close meetings. It's not allowed in the law. Yes. It depends on how your facilities are set up. In the vineyard town where I go, we ask the people to leave and tell them they can wait out in the cold where the mosquitoes are until we get down, and then they come back in. North Salt Lake, they've got this beautiful little antechamber off to the side with a big old conference room table on it. By the way, North Salt Lake's been sued so often they've even got a name tag for their visiting attorney to run that conference table. And they have a whole different taping system that they can put on there, let the public stay in. Okay, if you violate the Open and Public Meeting Act, purposefully, intentionally, you can be charged with a crime. County attorneys and the attorneys generals are charged with enforcing the Open Public Meetings Act. You will know if you're violating the Open Public Meetings Act. You will know if you're deliberating outside the public meeting. You will know if you're deciding outside the public sphere. You'll be the first to know. The public will suspect. I mean, if you get a hot issue in town and the public showing up and you show up a meeting and somebody, and we start in on it and then somebody says, oh, I move that we rezone the South 40 for the reasons previously discussed. And people are going to go, previously discussed with whom when? It'll be apparent that you've been discussing it off on the side or making your decision somewhere else. But if you, for example, get three of you together to secretly meet at somebody's house, knowing that you're violating the Open and Public Meetings Act to decide on some course or policy and how you're going to do it, and you've done that on purpose to keep out of the public eye and they catch you, there's a possibility that somebody's going to charge you with misdemeanor. But for sure, you're going to be publicly embarrassed. Government is not meant to be efficient. It's meant to be transparent.
Quote. That's a good quote. I work for the government. That's a great quote.
Really quickly, a lot of that was towards city councils, but in a closed meeting. And I wanted you guys to kind of hear that, just because, especially that very end part when we talk about meeting outside. So when we adjourn our meetings here, we shouldn't 3 or 4 of you go out into the parking lot and continue to talk about the meeting and things like that. Or we shouldn't solicit polls and things such as that. You shouldn't go around and since this was recorded, social media has gone probably 50 to 60 times more intense. And so it's really careful when we talk about things on social media. My suggestion is just don't get on there when, even though you know the answer to what's going on, just don't. Refrain from it, because it can get you, it's a misdemeanor. You can get that, and like you said, you get a possibility of getting charges at the very least. You'll get very embarrassed by people. because you get the right person, the right place, it's just not right. Keep it open and transparent. That's what the whole act is about. Don't go there. So I don't know if you guys had some questions. Mm-hmm.
We can do that, so it's 3 or more, right?
Correct. 3 or more. Yep. No, you guys can talk back and forth. Correct. What's that?
Open
We
public
can have an
meeting.
individual
What was the
conversation.
vote? So yeah. So
Yeah, that's not an issue at all.
3 makes it a, yeah, three makes it a quorum. So basically, if you've met any 3 of you get together, so that 3 or more is a violation of the Open Meetings Act. You must notice it 24 hours before that. Now there's the common, you're over in Davis Market, and you're a bunch of you, and there's a chance that 3 of you might come together. Just don't talk about things. Exactly. Talk about your kids or your, the mosquitoes that are outside the council chambers when you get thrown out of the meeting for a closed meeting. So, yeah.
Something that, had you bring this up or did you just?
No, not at all. I just want you guys to know, this is, so at the Utah Leagues, they do a mid-year conference training, which I think we just missed barely, or just when it was in St. George. But they also do one in the fall. And so this is kind of a sample of what you'll go in a breakout session. And that's what this was from. It was one of his breakout sessions. Now, David Church is retired. His son now, I believe, is taking over his place. But David Church had a way of just bringing it to real life and things that you've actually seen happen in city councils and planning commissions. And you're going, oh, yeah, we shouldn't have done that. And, he gives real life cases of things where people have been charged and different things. So, and he had, I think, 40 years of being an attorney for multiple cities, plus working for the Utah Leagues. But anyway.
So it might be a different video 6 months.
Well,
In the first and the second. The other thing though that you can cover is like the social gatherings where no decisions are being made, you don't count. So like we had a spring social where we had all of council there cooking for the city. You'll do the same thing at like the breakfast for, like that.
But
those social gatherings don't count. The ones that are no decisions being made, you're not discussing public, you're not discussing business. If you're there to be social, strictly social gatherings, that's fine. So,
and we might do some little videos like this if you guys want to, just to kind of help you. I know as a new planning commissioner, when I started it, we used to have, that was back before internet, back before phones, things such as that. It was dial up still. It was rotary phones. But anyway, we had the Utah Leagues. They would come down every once in a while and give us training. And, that was kind of cool, but I don't think they do that as much anymore just because the whole organization has grown quite large. And, but they might. We could request that, but there's sometimes we could maybe go over like what and because also trainings like that. And if there's a topic or something that you want to go over, maybe we go over our zoning ordinances. We could just go over a specific zoning ordinance and say, hey, do we need to have a public hearing for this? Do we need to have what is the procedures of these? So
We're doing, last year was just like, we would take like 20 minutes out of each one and just do a session where, like it was actually Ken at the time, and he would explain the process of a zone change or the process of a preliminary plat or the process of whatever. And we could ask questions. And I thought that was really beneficial to, even the process of a nightly rental application, it makes it a lot easier to see them sequences.
that is development, because there's so much development getting ready to come.
Yeah.
What you can talk about, when you can talk about it. What process.
I can tell you our meetings are going to become very long.
Yeah, well,
There's going to be
that's where I think that the strong chair helps. It really does. Keenan Worth, he was a very strong chair, and his Yeah, it's his meeting pretty quick. He was on the planning commission.
The other thing too is that, when we do that, like, so it's how he said, like, sometimes every meeting is open to the public, but we can only hear from the public at certain times. So we have allowed, there's the public forum, right, where we'll let anybody talk for 3 minutes about something that's not on the agenda, right? Where we added a thing to it, it's not on this one, we added it for council, Daisy just added it to this. One of the things with that is that is a time for them to speak, but it's not on the agenda, so that is a time when you do not respond to the public. And so a lot of times the public during that public forum will ask you a very difficult or very controversial question, and then you'll just kind of be sitting there like,
No.
yeah, they're like, what do you do, like, why are you saying something? And so that's what, so we added that to the agenda, and we're gonna ask the chair to say, so and it will say it right there, and it'll say that,
I'm glad you're adding that.
yeah, so it says, so, I mean, you can, read it, just do it whatever, you can read it whatever.
But it's meant to not be the question and answer.
Right here, please
So-
note that there will not be response by any official in this time. For specific questions, please contact city staff directly. So,
Well, then that's not even a requirement for a.
yeah, we're not required.
That's just one of our own rules that we're doing as a courtesy, right?
Exactly, because we want them to be.
Only
able
hearings are
to
required.
talk Some, or say things. We want them to be able to do that. We want to hear from them, but we just can't talk about anything on the agenda. So,
If they talk to staff on the side and meet with you and ask all their questions and things like that, have you seen from that things get to an agenda item to have discussion?
That's the only way they do get to an agenda item.
Because then there's actions.
That's exactly how they get on the agenda.
But
And
who
then,
makes
for
the decision
example,
it goes on the agenda?
That's done by the mayor and city council. So for, yeah. Right. Right.
I just meant if they're having a.
But if they're having, if somebody, yeah, so we have a process for that, but they actually have to fill out a paper if they want to be on the agenda. And then what we do in Tokerville is at our staff meeting on Tuesday, we actually review the city council agenda to do that. If somebody's going to be getting on the planning commission agenda, what they do is they come to what's called PSR, and that's planning staff review. And they come and they meet with me, they meet with Darren, and they meet with Joey. And so they meet with the three of us and they say, this is our idea. This is what we're thinking of. This is what we'd like to do in Tokerville. They say, okay, thanks for that information. That's really interesting. Let's have you fill out an application, a formal application to the city, and then it'll move through the process. And if you make it to the end, we'll see what the council says. So that's really the way it goes. And so they come in and they meet with us and do that. Some people want to come in if they just have a complaint. Some people say, I don't even know what zone I'm in. I don't even know how to find what zone I'm in. I just maybe want an Airbnb. And so we meet with them to give them somewhere. So when we say like, please call city staff, like we truly mean that. Like people will call us and we mean that. And we meet at a specific time. It's actually like they can come in and say, this is what I'd like to talk to you about. And so after that, they make their application. We have to respond. I mean, they go through the Joint Utility Committee, then they come to Planning Commission, and then it can move on to council. If it's just an actual complaint outside of the city, they come in. We do have code enforcement now that we're working with the city to address stacks of complaints and things. So we're trying to give them every opportunity to be heard and just follow the process. It's the main thing that we're trying to get across, like to the public, is that there is an actual process and we're doing the process. So if they come in, people, sometimes they just walk in and want to come in my office. Other times they'll make an appointment. Sometimes they'll call me. I mean, and sometimes their complaints are resolved that they don't even want to come to a discussion, And so it just depends on what the complaints are about, but others we're like, okay, we'll take that to council. And usually what I do is when it's in a specific thing, I'll kind of see, like, I'll talk to Darren now that he's here, or Joey, but they're not all land use. You know what I mean? Some of them just don't like their neighbors. Some of them just in general don't like their neighbors, And so we try to have areas where we can do that. We're like, and now we feel really good because we do have planning and zoning. We have code enforcement. We have a building inspector. You know what I mean? We have public works inspecting. So now that we're starting to have people that actually are like even from the city side, are actually going out and doing those. And we're like, where's the picture? Where's the proof? Where's this? Where's, so we're addressing complaints. Yeah, we've got Liz Miles. She's code enforcement now. She does it for Laverkin, but she lives in Tokerville. So she does it for us too. She's doing that 20 hours a week. So we're just trying to get the processes down and make it so that you guys don't always get cornered by everybody, or try to do that.
You just say, just contact.
Call the city, and they'll just send them right to me. So,
With staff, I don't have a problem meeting with somebody if they want to ask about something
Yeah.
for a little bit. Make them go.
All the way,
we don't say, we won't talk to you till Wednesday, but if it's something where they actually want to talk about, like, hey, I think I want to do this in Tokerville, we're like, come on in. Just say, call the city. Yeah, call the city. And all of them know at the front, all the girls at the front, they know to send us. Mhm.
You guys are more than welcome to come too, because
Yeah.
PSR is just like we're BSing kind of right now, not BSing, but it's very casual, very informal. Like people are just trying to get their questions. Hey, I think I want to do a nightly rental in a bus. Can I do that? And then we say, here's the code. Here, this is
No,
what.
Joey, they can come to that. That's partially accurate. They can come to JUC, but they cannot come to PSR. PSR is where confidential information is given to the city, that lots of times if it's about a land development, if it's about things like that, those developers actually are like, we don't want to do it. So PSR, no, but JUC, definitely. Because they have a formal, because they have a formal application in. PSR is not. PSR is like a meeting that somebody has with me at my office, or we've done it here. But those things, lots of time, the land hasn't closed. Maybe they're going to go a different way. What happens at PSR, actually, some of those things that end up coming through at PSR actually end up in closed sessions. If they want to do a land trade, if they want to do those things. So PSR is not the place for planning commission, but joint utility, yes. Those people have a formal application into the city. Definitely you could come to JUC, and then obviously planning commission and that. So we don't have a quorum present.
Three of you together talking about city business, or being part of city business there would constitute.
So for example, at the joint utility, you couldn't have all three of you. No, you cannot have a quorum. Yeah. Yeah, like you could come, Sean could come, Joey could come, but you can't have, but you're the chair. So you, I don't think that's a quorum if it's, well, it might be two and a quorum. Yeah, it is. So it'll be you. So pick one person. That's it. Maybe two. Yeah, exactly. Or two could come. If Joey's there, it's not. If Joey's going to miss, two others could show up. Yeah, for sure. It's really interesting, and it's interesting to see because a lot of times things get put before you guys, and there's kind of this impression that you guys are the first ones to see it. And it's not. It's actually run through us. It's been sorted. They've done applications. Darren's met with them multiple times. And yeah. Right.
Is that a monthly?
It is. Yeah. And the fourth, JUC is the fourth. JUC is on the fourth of it's the second and fourth, the Joint Utility Committee.
Us to maybe come once in a while.
So Sean,
Yeah, and you can observe, but we just don't have you comment or try to run a planning commission there.
make sure that
He's come a couple times.
because if I'm sick or something and I can't make it, a lot of what happens in JUC gives the insight so that you can explain it as the chair to hear. So like, I've seen these applications for months before they come to this, to planning
Right.
commission. And so when you guys say, oh, you've done your research, well, no, it's because I've seen it and gone through it 100 times already, or at least.
And because he's done his research. But the joint utility, it would be good for you to visit it at least one time, because we literally are in this room and we sit around a big table and the plans are out and their applications out. And we go through a checklist and we say, okay, water conservancy, every utility brings a person here and says, hey, Water Conservancy, do you have any comments? And then they say, then we say, okay, Ash Creek, and the representative will say this, and then fire, and then they'll say, we would never approve this because of this or this, change this. So by the time it gets to you, it's had feedback from all of the Joint Utility Committee and staff recommendations, and Joey's been there and seen it. And so it's been through a process before it gets to you. But if you want to come see the Joint Utility Committee, definitely do it. We just had one today, so.
And I can tell you,
Yeah.
I can tell you that every time a nightly rental comes through and you go to Ash Creek Sewer and they say your sewer is going to go up $5, everybody gets pissed.
Yeah.
That's what I can tell you.
Yeah, exactly.
It's commercial use.
Yeah. So that's kind of one thing that we're trying to do is that public, just send them to the city.
Anybody else have any?
I had a question for Darren. Didn't we have, or maybe you guys, didn't we have the grading ordinance last month? Did we send it to council or was it getting?
So it was at their work meeting and
Okay.
yeah, so it was at their work meeting and they'll vote on it next week. Yeah.
I couldn't remember if we sent it through, because I remember it was one we hadn't really looked at. So.
I was wondering about that too, because I saw him over there dropping off some equipment over there. And there's a tractor still over there, but it doesn't look like it's been good.
Yeah,
So I was
that
wondering-
was sitting there. Yeah, I saw that too. It's up by
The RV.
It's,
And they might be reconfirming soil samples or test holes or something. It doesn't mean that they're really graded. Yeah.
yeah, and then, yeah, it's not grading equipment, they haven't done anything additional. They actually have grading for that.
I just couldn't remember if you guys had sent it over to them or if it was coming back to you. So.
It went to them, and we did a presentation at council. We had Rick Rosenberg come from the Rosenberg Associates, who's the mayor for the city of Santa Clara.
He was the one who dropped it, that right? Or helped drop it?
Yeah, he's one who elected, so he came and did that. Yeah, he updated our ordinance. They're also updating our ordinance. But anyway, he came and did a presentation with council, both from an engineering standpoint and from the civil engineers, so we go from engineering and labor, how it affects the city. So we feel like we've got pretty good draft in front of them. So if they like it, they've seen it, so if they like it, they will get action.
So it's on, okay. So it's on the agenda for next week?
Okay. Any other discussion items? Yeah.
Are we allowed to, as a resident versus a council member, like during a council meeting, are we allowed to stand up during public forum and ask any questions or say anything to you? Because of our stature here.
If it's something that's a non-land use, like let's say it's what else would they have a public hearing on that doesn't have a public hearing here? She can do that at city council. You betcha. You can say anything you want
Nothing
there.
here.
Right, you're talking about the public forum. You're saying.
Where you have the 3 minutes.
For 3 minutes to speak about anything that's not on the
Like,
agenda.
could I stand up and be like, I don't like that,
Yep.
Yeah,
and I won't say anything here because I'm not trying to revere.
yeah.
And I guess I had concern because I didn't realize the grading thing was going through and I had thoughts on it, but it's too late now.
Right.
Same as everybody had thoughts on the nightly rental last month. Okay, I would look for a motion to adjourn.
I motion that we adjourn the meeting.
We have a second? Okay, a motion and a second. We'll take a vote.
Aye.
Aye. Okay, we officially adjourn at 8:35.
And this was going to be a short one.